Yo, good morning, good morning, good morning. Flipping over to live chat, setting a goal, having a decent morning. Let me go ahead and set this up. Blah, 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 blah. I haven't had any caffeine yet. I do have the kids, which is awesome. I do love hanging out with my boys. Unfortunately, my youngest was not in the mood for daycare today. So he, Hank's school. He didn't want to go to Hank's school. He was upset he had to go to Hank's school, which was kind of heart-wrenching. But let me go ahead and give people a little second. JD Vance TikTok. And we'll do a little JD Vance wake up.
So this is really who Donald Trump chose as his running mate?
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I never liked him. I never liked him. I never liked racism. I'm a never Trump guy. Xenophobia. I'm a never Trump guy. Racism. I'm a never Trump guy. Xenophobia. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I never liked him.
Let's go. Oh, God. I think the reason why that hit harder, the drink don't need no mix, Shabuzi. Interesting. I think the reason why that hits a little bit harder for me today, rather than on a normal day, is because JD Vance went on Joe Rogan and allegedly was throwing the Trump admin under the bus a little bit, probably preparing for his 2028 presidential run. So, hi, Cotter, did you watch the JD Rogan shit? I haven't seen it. They do, by the way, I wouldn't have a problem watching that, but basically what we would have to do is we would have to bring something else up on screen and play audio only because of copyright. Joe Rogan's, I've done it in the past. It's very similar to Jubilee. If you let it play on your screen, even as a small screen, for like more than 20 minutes, they copyright strike you. So I'd be happy to watch it. Unfortunately, though, when it's like 2 hours, you know what I'm saying? Like I could actually, I could do that real quick. Do a poll. JD Vance, Joe Rogan. Oh, wait, hold on. Content question mark. And then JD Vance, Joe Rogan audio only. Or we could do Ross Douthat, Niels on Hasan. So I'm down for either. Realistically, the JD Vance thing, the reason why I wouldn't necessarily want to do the JD Vance thing is Joe Rogan has this vibe where everybody who comes onto his show is basically like his friend, right? And so as a result, he's not antagonistic, particularly for the first 30 minutes. He's not antagonistic at all. And then probably 30 minutes in, they actually start getting into the meat of the topic. And then after that, they kind of, get into maybe a few issues of contention that make up a total of like 15 minutes of the entirety of the podcast. And then they kind of have like an aftercare 20 minutes when they're wrapping up. You know what I'm saying? So basically, like, I would listen to the JD Vance Joe Rogan thing, but I would only do audio, and I would also, what else would I do? I would fast forward 30 minutes. That way we could get through all the pleasantries. But anyways, I'll just say hi to everybody real quick. Fellrunner says 07. 07, good to see you. Well, QC John says first. Ha ha ha. Damn it, again, lol. Literally, Well, QC John was typing that as Fellrunner typed it. That's pretty funny. And then... Good morning, Grill Hottest. May your grill stay hot. May your beer stay cold. May you keep all your fingers while blowing things up. Amen. And oh shit, great minds think alike. You literally typed that as I was saying it from memory. You need to be more dedicated, Weld. True. Thank you. Appreciate it. iCup says fire. True. Third like reporting in 07 kids. Remember, live chat is better than top chat. I did change to live chat automatically because you've reminded me so many times. Kazir says, did you see the JD Rogan stuff? I did. So just getting into it before we even put it on, because apparently it's winning 2-1 in the polling, is JD Vance did kind of throw the Trump administration under the bus in reference to the Iran war and in reference to the Epstein files. With the Epstein files where he said, just drop it all. Just fuck it. Just drop it all. You know, it'll be a political firestorm. People get pissed off. Maybe some people go to jail, whatever. But drop it, drop it all. See where the chips land. And honestly, I agree with him, both from like a political perspective and a moral perspective. I don't think his moral calculation is very much in there, but I just agree with that assessment that they should have dropped it all and let the chips fall where they may. Now with, excuse me, I'm sorry for yawning in your ears. Now, in reference to the Iran war, I think he did one of these things where he was like, well, you know, not a huge fan of us being over there or whatever, but I think we're on a good path now. So he's trying to kind of have it both ways, where he's trying to say like, you know, I disagreed with the war initially, which matches reporting, but you know, you got to make the fucking best you can out of a bad situation. Therefore, we're going to fucking keep pressing in the right direction or whatever. So, Kazir says Dems are fucked in my opinion. Really? Really? That's interesting. So, JD makes me mad and sad. That's true. Dems are effed in my opinion. How so, Kazra? I'm curious. Brad is leaning into the eyeball thing. What? Leaning into the staring into the camera. I should lean into the eyeball thing. I should be staring into the camera more. I know you guys love it when I do that. They probably just talk about MMA, bears, and getting high. Maybe, Los Maicos, but it's still winning with 58% of the votes, so we might be doing that. They talk about aliens. Yeah, I think aliens is like a psyop, man. I'm sure there's UFOs, but I've been told by several Lockheed representatives that they are just advanced fucking UFO bullshit. Like it's advanced drone tech. So, oh. All right. Read the prayer. They do talk about aliens. Grillman, true. Delvionian says, good morning. Also, what is that thumbnail? That is Adam Mockler. He's no offense to Adam. Love Adam. Good guy. But Adam Mockler is kind of like a mousy Midas Touch guy. No offense to him. But he's like a nice kid. He's genuinely a nice kid. He's got to be in his early 20s. And he just kind of has the soft boy, ooh-woo, kawaii, Korean pop punk, not even pop punk, Korean boy band aesthetic, but infused in a white guy. But he goes on CNN and he throws elbows like a fucking champion. Like he'll be on there with like 40-year-old, 50-year-old fucking policy wonks from the Bush administration that are now Trump dick suckers, and he'll just fucking throw elbows with the best of them. And so as a result, one time he did thoroughly embarrass Scott Jennings, and after thoroughly embarrassing Scott Jennings, he did like a face to the camera, and somebody photoshopped it into that. The Adam Moggler, yes, the Moggler. The Moggler Photoshop. So, I mean, like, I should change my own PFP. I should get a new PFP. You know, the old PFP was from, a conversation debate with Destiny. So, I should get a new PFP. But until then, I have the Moggler downloaded on my computer, and it's quite funny. So, Grillmen, God please be the JD Vance Rogan thing. Yeah, we'll do the Rogan thing. It's newer, it's fresher, it's more. I realistically wish I could. I don't know how to change the title on OBS once you've already done it. Once you've already set the stream, I don't know how to change the title. Studio mode, start visual camera, start recording, stop streaming, studio mode, settings. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, but whatever. It is what it is. It's fine. Rubio and JD are going to be a problem. Who's the Dems champions? Mamdami. Well, I thought it was going to be, who's that white psychopath from California? I know California is going to be an electoral problem, but he's a white, straightish male. So, you know, the Democrats have lost because they keep running women and people of color. Don't underestimate the subconscious sexism and racism of America. So, I'll end the poll. We'll do JD Vance. We'll do JD Vance audio. And let me just pull that up. Let me make sure it's even available. JD Vance, Joe Rogan. Should be within the past 24 to 48 hours. 20 hours ago. Let's go. Whoopsie doopsie. A little bit of a mute. iCup says, you see that they're going to start adding TRT for people in the military? Lol, I knew a few guys who got to give it to them before I got out. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if you're... So I think your healthy testosterone levels are supposed to be in the 500s. What are healthy testosterone levels in men? The average total testosterone level for an adult male typically ranges from 300 to 1,000. Levels peak in a man's early teens to 20s, around 600 to 700 nanograms per deciliter, and naturally decline by about 1% per year after the age of 30. A level below 300 is generally categorized as low T. Testosterone naturally fluctuates throughout the day and is highest in the early morning. Because of this variation, blood tests are typically performed before 10 a.m. Healthcare professionals generally expect adult total testosterone to fall within a harmonized reference range of 264 to 916. So, I mean, for me, I think it actually is a health thing where if you're in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, and you're dropping into the 300s or 400s, they should boost you up to 500 or 600 as long as there's not correlated health effects. So, if you're experiencing symptoms like low sex drive, fatigue, and reduced muscle mass, healthcare providers will evaluate your levels alongside these symptoms to determine treatment options. Listen, I am constantly fatigued, but I still have some muscle mass due to weightlifting, and unfortunately, my libido has not gone away. I would happily take a low libido right now. That would be amazing. Yes. Aliens are real, bro. You can believe in God and reject aliens as if you're a reasonable person, lol. I'm not rejecting aliens in totality. I think aliens 100% exist. I think the galaxy is way too big. And I think the universe is way too big in order for there not to be biological life on other planets somewhere. Definitely in the universe. Probably in the Milky Way. But what I would say, like the distance between us and the moon is 300,000 kilometers. And that is our closest neighbor. And everything past that, I think the sun is a light second away. And it's a astronomical, keyword, distance that's difficult to conceptualize for the human mind. Like, even if you're talking about going to a different planet, using conventional engines would take years. And we don't have the technology for conventional engines that burn for that long. We actually need to unlock fusion and or use fission technology with sufficient burnable mass in order to gain the thrust necessary to make it to other planets in a timely fashion. Time dilation is going to fuck us. And what was the other thing? Time dilation, sufficient mass to burn fission or fusion drives. Anyway, space travel is a motherfucker. All right. Space travel. Oh, it's a light minute. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, the Epstein drive, unfortunately named Fusion Drive. When I was watching The Expanse and they were like, the Epstein drive, the Epstein drive, the Epstein drive, I was like, ha, that did not mean the same thing 5 years ago. Whoops. Go to YouTube Studio, navigate to the content tab, select the live section, click the pencil edit, and that sounds like too much Los Mixcos, but I appreciate you. Bosch might be able to win a seat in California at this point. True. Obama stomped McCain and Romney. America isn't that racist. Hillary lost because she has more skeletons in her closet than Paris has under the streets. Damn, that's a spicy statement. And Kamala lost because she isn't a leader. Ooh, that is spicy. If you're under 300, they'll give you tests. I'm just glad we're finally giving our troops the gender-affirming care they need. True, grassroots, true. Anyways. Aliens are going to be like squid or something. Maybe, especially if they're on like a different planet that's dominated by water. Think about this. You know how 2/3 of the planet is water? What if there was a planet out there that was like 90% water? And then as a result of 90% water, all the evolved living creatures on the planet were fucking sea creatures. So it was like dolphins and squids and shit, you know? How do you evolve an opposable thumb underwater? I'm not saying it's impossible. Obviously, crabs have claws and shit. What if they're crab people? What if they're crab people who evolve, you know, hands because they need to complexly manipulate fucking shit and claws are not sufficient, you know? We haven't released any evidence of intelligent life on other planets. True. Probably 1 or 2 by math, I think, but I don't know if that's life now or life at some point in time. True. Also, she's more than a light second away. Yeah, somebody said that the sun is a light minute away. I remembered it was some... I think the moon is approximately a light second. I think the sun is a light minute. So... Bro, tune into the Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller leftist terrorism briefing. They're going to strip rights. Oh, my God. Dude, Nameless Henchman. I understand that you are confidently abrasive on so many things and believe yourself to be correct. Have faith. Have faith. Okay? I'm not lost on the idea that you sympathize with anti-leftist sentiments, but this sounds like German speech. Okay, well, have faith in the Constitution of the United States, okay? Science seems like a Connor's weak point. It's really fucking not, and fuck you, Rodney Hobbs, for saying that. I understand plenty of shit about fucking science. You know, the thing that I don't fuck with is, or the thing that I fuck with science is the narrativization of science to be understood by dipshits. Okay? That's what I fuck with. What I don't fuck with is the specific maths plural, that make science work. So for instance, like, I'm okay at algebra. I was able to do the simple calculation for calculus. I even got like a high B on a calculus test when I was drunk out of my fucking mind in college, which was awesome. But that doesn't mean that I'm good at there are people who understand calculus. Like they understand not only that you can calculate the instantaneous rate of change, they understand how that works intuitively. My older brother is like that. And I do not have I have a very verbal, historical, narrativized, linguistic brain. He has a very mathematics, physical brain. And so he is able to understand calculus, mechanical objects, melting points, chemistry, all that bullshit. He understands it intuitively on a bone level. He sees how the way the world works, right? I see the way I wish the world worked, and then I see cool things that push towards the way that I want the world to work. He sees the way the world actually works, which is interesting. He's also more of a Christian than me, and he's definitely smarter than all of you, so no offense. He is a mechanical engineer. The only people that I trust to be smarter than my older brother are other engineers and physicists. So, Kaiser says, I just think it's all Trump's theater now to navigate this time. The conflict between Rubio and JD Vance, it's a show. They're playing both sides. That's the vibe I get. Don't ask for a great argument. Okay. Kilt Warrior, if the sun went out, we wouldn't know visually until 8.3 minutes had passed. I know, isn't that a cool stat? If you want a dark sci-fi series to dive into, check out Lilith's Brood on the Xenogenesis series. Low-key, the darkest sci-fi I've ever read. I mean, that's cool. I just don't read a lot. Don't have a lot of time. I understand plenty of shit about science. It's not wrong per se, but it's never confidence-inspiring lol. Okay. If you're an engineer in college, most of your calculus is done drunk out of your fucking mind, to be honest. Well, that's fair. Says my membership shouldn't expire until August 14th. Okay. Connor math good, but Connor astrophysics bad. Presume other topics bad like anthropology. No, you dick. Isn't the moon a fucking light set? How far away is the moon in kilometers? I think I said 300,000. 384,000 kilometers. So it's closer to 400,000 than 300,000, but I took a class a decade ago. So fuck you. How far away is the moon in light seconds? 1.28 light seconds. I was right again. Go fuck yourself. How far away is the sun in light years? I think it's approximately a light minute. Is 0.000158 light years away from Earth. Let's do light minutes or light seconds. 499 light seconds, which I guess divide by 60, right? So somebody said it was 4 minutes or something like that. What? Why? Okay. It's, no, that's not it. Okay, hold on. Here we go. In light minutes. 8? 499 divided by 60? See, this is where you shouldn't trust me. Not completely. 499 divided by 60. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So I was wrong about the sun. My apologies. But the point is, 8.33 light minutes is not that far. And yet, how long is a light minute? Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure is a measure of distance, not time. It's 1.8 e to the plus 7. So isn't that million? So a light minute is 1.8 million kilometers. Yeah, it's a fuckload. So my general thesis that space is a lot bigger than you think it is still accurate. So, eat my wiener. Bazraka! Thank you for the gifted. Officer Nasty, thank you for the renewal. A good engineer is just good at math to identify when it's about to get really hard, and a good enough designer to avoid the fucking plague. Well, my brother said something similar. He basically said, be scared of me and my friends fucking around with the world's most advanced technology because we are a bunch of fucking apes, right? I don't know what a heavy second is. I don't know if you're being sarcastic. Being shrill is not a substantive argument. Yes, it is. Have you seen Twitch and YouTube political debates? Literally 40% of it is just being shrill. Since the moon is a light second away, it takes twice that to send light there and it bounce back. Huh. Interesting. I mean, obvious, but interesting. Connor believes the moon is 380,000 kilometers away. Isn't that true? Didn't we just literally Google that? How far away is the moon in kilometers? 384,000 fucking kilometers. What the fuck? You literally just said that as if I was wrong. I said 300,000. I took an astronomy class literally a decade and a half ago. I took an astronomy class in 2011. Okay? And all of my knowledge is based off of what I retained from astronomy in 2011 at Valencia Community College. I retained the approximate distance of the moon for 15 fucking years And you guys are like, look at this pussy. He doesn't know shit. Using today's fastest spacecraft speeds, it would take roughly 3 to 4 months to reach the sun's vicinity. And that is the Parker Solar Probe. Interesting. That is interesting. I think we need to get away from chemical rockets, though. Obviously, like, chemical rockets is the way that we get around right now. But, and you can go really fucking fast. You can go like 20,000 kilometers a fucking second or some shit. Like, what is the speed of modern rockets in vacuum? It gets really fucking fast really quick. Yeah, 17,500 miles per hour or 8 kilometers a second. 8? I was saying 17,000, but I was thinking of miles per hour, not kilometers per second. But dude, 8 kilometers a second. 1. You just traveled 8 kilometers. That's fucking bananas. It was a flat earth joke. I'm sorry I'm too dumb to understand your flat earth joke. My apologies. Anyways, stop fucking with me about astronomy. We making solar sails, wild shit. You know what's crazy? There's a heat barrier at the edge of the solar system. Edge of the solar system. So weirdly enough, take a look at this. NASA's Voyager 1 and 2 spacecraft detected a superheated plasma zone or wall of fire at the edge of the solar system located at the heliopause, where the sun's solar wind collides with interstellar space. This region reaches a scorching 30,000 to 50,000 Kelvin, 54,000 to 90,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite these extreme temperatures, the spacecraft did not melt. Space is a near-perfect vacuum, so the plasma particles are incredibly sparse. There's simply too few particles to collide with the metal and transfer enough heat to cause damage. But dude, there's literally a heat wall at the edge of our solar system. It like collects. It's like a pool of you know, when you're in a pool and you pee, and there's a little not that I do that, not that you would ever do that, but imagine that you're in a pool and it's filled with 60-degree water, and then you pee, and then that area is filled with your warm pee. Not that I did that or ever did that. Not that you would do that or ever do that. And then it's kind of like a giant circle of pee, and then surrounding you is the cold water, and for an extended period, those pockets will stay non-mixed. Isn't that fucking weird? Isn't that crazy? Old School with the 2 says we need to build a space elevator. I agree with you. Although, how do you keep... I was always wondering about that because they had the space elevators in Halo. I was wondering, what are the physics of something that, you know, large and skinny and tall? You know? James Delosink says North is winning penguin grape cherry. I don't know about that. No, we can't stop fucking with you. That is rocket speed in a vacuum. Roll on the floor laughing. Well, rocket speed in a vacuum is different than rocket speed in atmosphere, because in atmosphere you have drag. So in vacuum, you can achieve substantially higher speeds because you don't have atmospheric drag. It's more like hot fog. Okay. Going 8 kilometers a second doesn't do much good when you get obliterated when you hit a rock. See, AK Batusai, that's one of the things that I want to know. So what would you make the front of the spaceship like fucking 10,000 millimeters of fucking titanium? Like, what would you do for the exterior shell of a spaceship? Because the truth is, so we could get to other, okay, What is the maximum speed of a rocket in atmosphere? (4,000 kilometers an hour. Although I guess this is generally speaking about escape velocity. A rocket's maximum speed within dense lower atmosphere is physically constrained by extreme aerodynamic drag and structured heating. At sea level, this limit is generally around Mach 2 to 3. Oh, I was right. Go fuck yourself. How's that, Rob? Rob goes slow and Rob fucking whoever the fuck else? Are you shitting my dick right now? Dude, being smug and incorrect is my job, not yours. Okay? So, I said, what is the maximum speed of chemical rockets in vacuum? It was 17,000 kilometers an hour. Then you came back and like, speed is speed. No, retard. You're wrong. Okay? And then, at sea level, this limit is generally reached at 4,000 kilometers an hour. Because of the fucking drag of atmosphere. Almost like I knew what I was talking about and you didn't. So, eat a bowl of wieners. Anyways. Is that Rob with a B? I thought I liked Rob with a B more than I liked... because there was another Rob, which was like Lethal Lance, who was another fucking smug liberal douchebag. So, you know, him and I had some good times, but Lethal Lance is still... It was like AF Racing, where we were boys for a while, and then we got into a beef, and then it got nasty. So... AK Batusai says, you would not be able to... sigh, this is sad. Okay, take a lap. How's this? You don't know when to stop, Rob. You're literally incorrect. And you're being a dick about it. Here you go. There's 10 minutes. Have fun. But what was I thinking? Chemical rockets, atmosphere, non-collision. So weirdly enough, space is big enough that the chances of you hitting something are very low. Like there's infinitely more vacuum without physical objects in it than there is. So what you would have to do is burn it. You would have to get out of the solar system, burn in that direction for a certain amount of time in order to reach ludicrous speed. Then once you reach ludicrous speed, you would flip and burn in the opposite direction in order to decelerate as you were approaching the solar system of the target system. Then once you got into system, you would probably want to, you know, travel at a reasonable speed where if you hit a grain of sand, it didn't obliterate your ship. So, Connor, that was so off-center of you. No. You guys know me. I'm a sensitive soul. If you fucking piss in my Cheerios, I'm going to get upset about it. But anyways, are you guys ready? Are you guys ready for fucking JD Vance talking shit to Joe Rogan? I am going to fast forward the first 30 minutes because normally it takes a while for them to get into shit. Although, with the there's some expressive body language here. So I'm going to go ahead and go here. Y'all ready for fucking audio only? Joe Rogan. Thank you to Vazraka for the gifted. Thank you to Officer Nasty for the renewal. Thank you to Old School for the $2. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them, parasocial, love you. Thank you for being here. And let's get cracking. All right. You guys are going to have to like maybe how do we want to do this? I think I'll minimize, and then I'll bring up like Microsoft Paint, and I'll just keep going with the alien genocide list. All right. You ready? I'm ready. Hi guys, welcome to Counterpoints. My name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, politics, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I would argue a real Republican, and I'm trying to be a rhino. A Republican who is honest, has integrity, nuance, and objectives. Today, I have the audio only Joe Rogan versus JD Vance. JD Vance is the current vice president of the United States. He has been complicit in the Trump regime. He has helped sweep the Epstein files. He has helped launch the war in Iran. He's backing away from both of those topics in order to try to get his own presidential aspirations for 2028 off of the ground. So he sat down with Joe Rogan in order to have this conversation, and apparently it is quite interesting. Now, Joe Rogan and his the Rogan Experience is quite aggressive about copyright. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the audio, and I am going to be using Microsoft Paint to show off the alien races that I would either genocide or tolerate. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
By every metric.
Yeah. But I mean, okay, so you asked the question, why do all these blue states, or why do all these big cities, population centers end up becoming blue? And I think it's like a very complicated, right? So one thing, and you said this a few months ago, and like when you said it, I was like kind of annoyed by it, but then I like thought, there's like an element of truth to it, which is that Republicans still fundamentally have a cool problem, right? There's something more charismatic, more cool about the Democrats as opposed to the right.
Did I say that?
So you said something about there are too many dorks or something on the right.
There's a lot of dorks.
You know, fair. I'd say there's a lot of dorks
There's
on the
a lot
left.
of dorks
but like,
on the
whatever.
left, too.
But
It's a different kind of dork.
It's a different kind of dork. But the point is that there's something, like, okay, if you're a pop star, you're a rock star, you're an actor, you're in all these cultural centers, you're more likely to be left than right. And so I think that a lot of young people who are attracted to these population centers, they sort of move along with the prevailing culture. I think that's one thing.
Somebody says, and let me know if we get copyright struck even with audio only. Somebody says, if you are not drawing just boxes and text, you are legally compelled in order to put on the Bob Ross wig. I'll put on the Bob Ross wig when Christian Vlaris comes back. How about that for a deal, okay? I said some spicy things in reference to the drama. He didn't like it. He didn't like the way that he conducted myself, or the way that I conducted myself. He left the community despite being a long-term veteran of the community and tolerating tons of content that he didn't like. Well, I'll put the wig on when he comes back. How about that?
Thing that's going on. I think a second thing that's going on is the people who are sort of attracted to a certain kind of right of center politics. They want the suburbs, they want the single family home, they kind of want to be left alone, they don't want sort of to be able to hear what their neighbors are doing. So I think a little bit of it's just cultural self-segregation, and that's meant that a lot of these population centers have gone blue. But it's very complicated. I've thought about this a lot, and I also just, I'm not one of these people who says we should just abandon California to the Democrats, like let them deal with their own problems. I think California is like a quintessential part of the American dream. Like if you just abandon California, you've like lost something very core to American culture. And I don't want to give up on it. Like I'm not saying we're going to win California in my lifetime necessarily, but I don't like the idea of giving up on it.
Well, it's not just giving up on. I mean, giving up on it would be terrible. It's an awesome state. The real problem is it's deeply corrupt.
Yes.
I mean, deeply, deeply corrupt. And what they're trying to do is make it impossible for the other side to win.
Yeah.
And there should be laws against that. First of all, the idea of mail-in ballots for anybody other than people who are invalids, who can't leave their homes, or military, or people that, for some reason, they're serving overseas, they're doing something overseas, it should not be legal.
That's right.
And the fact that it became ubiquitous during COVID is a giant problem.
Yeah, so this raises one of my total segue here, side point. But so if you remember in the after.
Joe Rogan, huge fan of the Save America Act. I guess I should have seen that one coming. There is a principled fight between conservatives and liberals and progressives. I'm sorry if I land on the more conservative side of this, but I think you guys know that I want to I want to limit the franchise even more. When the United States was first formed, it was like white men of good character. Weirdly enough, we expanded it to black men before we gave women the right to vote, which I find hilarious. That we were more sexist than we were racist. I actually find that deeply, deeply, deeply ironic. Because like racism is like one of America's like great original sins, and yet we were more sexist than we were racist when it came to the franchise. I find that historical fact absolutely hysterical. But we expanded it to men eventually, then we expanded it to women eventually. Now even the gays can vote. It's crazy out there. So I think that we could restrict the franchise within reasonable limits. Basically, anybody who votes should have to pass the citizenship test. That is something that if I was dictator of America and capable of doing, I would instantaneously snap my fingers and say, you have to pass the citizenship test that we force foreign immigrants to pass in order to be citizens. You have to pass that in order to vote. And then I probably would have voter ID, where you have to present some kind of photo ID with an address and name. That way you can, like on principle. It's not about how much fraud there is. It's about whether or not you're capable of obtaining a photo ID in a 4-year cycle so you can vote. You know, it's not about blacks. It's not about browns. It's about whether or not you're fucking stupid as fuck and can't get a fucking photo ID, right? So I understand that that could have a racist outcome where it disproportionately affects brown or black people. I understand it could have a economic or ableist outcome where a bunch of disabled people and a bunch of poor people are incapable of passing the written citizenship test. I don't really give a shit. I would like to think that people who understand civics, people who understand the United States of America, people who understand society writ large to some degree, hopefully, this is a hopefully thing, hopefully wouldn't just vote to genocide the poors and the browns and the blacks who can't vote. I'm hoping. But we'll see. We'll see. That's what I would do. So, the Save America Act, I'm sure there's bad parts of it. But in general, requiring in-person voting, with like a few exceptions that actually make sense for mail-in, I don't have a beef with it in principle. I just think that the Trump administration is coping. Okay? I think they're coping because they're mad that they lost 2020. That's the only reason why I oppose the Save America Act, if it's just like a voter ID anti-fraud measure that is actually executed faithfully. The only reason why I would oppose it or laugh when it doesn't pass is because I think the Trumpians are ass mad that they lost 2020 and they want to pass a law so they can say, look, even though we were cheated out of 2020, we passed a law, you know? Says a man. Correct. I am a man. I was born with male genitals. Don't you need photo ID to register to vote? Probably. Connor, play Kerbal Space Program. You don't understand propulsion and motion, and unironically, that game would help. I'm going to propel your fucking nuts into the stratosphere, Rob Go Slow. I'm going to play Kerbal Space Program with your fucking testicles and duct tape. How about that? Anyways, back to it. Joe Rogan being a big fan of the SAVE Act is kind of funny to me, though.
Aftermath of the 2020 election, where there was all this like debate about was the election stolen, was the election not stolen, all the litigation that moved through. There was a case in Pennsylvania that like didn't get very much attention, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but basically it was a guy in a rural area of Pennsylvania saying, you're undercounting my vote because we didn't have the opportunity to do the mail-in ballots like they did in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And like the argument was a kind of disparate impact, right? The cities ginned up all the mail-in balloting and the ballot harvesting. You didn't do that in the country, and that hurt sort of our representation. So they take this case to the Pennsylvania courts. And what's crazy is the Pennsylvania courts basically say, you're making kind of a good point here. Like the ballot harvesting did affect Republicans in a more negative way. It did mean that certain people in the more rural parts of the state were underrepresented. But then the court conclusion was, this is not a problem a court can fix. Like that's a political problem. Change your, local elections leaders, change your laws. Like that's not a remedy that the court has to fix. And so everybody saw that case and they're like, oh, the judge rules against Donald Trump, rules against Republicans for saying that there was something illegitimate. But no, actually, the judge kind of said, there is something kind of fishy here. We're just the wrong venue to fix it.
Well, it's just very disheartening that you have to consider the fact that it's really possible that the elections get stolen. And the California one was a big one for me.
And why not just have mail-in, or why not just have voter ID?
Yeah.
You
well,
actually
that's
saw.
insane. Not only did they not have voter ID,
Yeah.
you can't show your ID. You're not allowed to show your ID.
You can in fact be like prosecuted if you try to force somebody to show their
Which
ID.
that
Yeah.
seems like you want people to cheat.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is from the same people that were saying you have to have an ID that shows you've been vaccinated just 4
So, like,
years ago
to go to
a
grocery
restaurant.
shopping or to go to a restaurant. Yeah, no, it's definitely, that's the part about it that I think makes most people of my political persuasion skeptical of what the Democrats are doing.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want to cheat in the election, then just make everybody actually show an ID. Another thing people don't realize is, I didn't realize this until a couple years ago, the voter ID solves a lot of the mail-in ballot problem. Because if you have to show an ID in order to get a mail-in ballot, in order to actually, confirm that there's a real identification attached to that vote, that solves a big chunk of the problem
This
too.
is just logical.
Yes.
Like, I'm not
Every country
skeptical.
does it.
I'm not skeptical. I'm accusing them. I think they stole the election.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think it's common. And this idea.
What? What? How did California steal an election? Are they talking about the mayoral shit? U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles said Friday it has opened multiple election fraud investigations related to California's elections and sent a prosecutor to the country's vote counting center. The development came after President Donald Trump made baseless claims of mass fraud in California's drawn-out vote count from Tuesday's primary. Late-tallied Democratic-leaning mail ballots were continuing to eat into the vote totals for the president's preferred candidate for governor and Los Angeles mayor. The announcement by U.S. Attorney Bill... then prove it. Okay, just prove it, dude. Listen. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Let's say that Donald Trump and the Republicans came out with proof positive. Hey, here are 20,000 outcome determinative voter ballots in Arizona, Georgia, fucking Pennsylvania, whatever. And we have traced these ballots back to dead people. We have traced these back to illegal immigrants. We have traced these back to people who said they did not vote at all. They did not fill out a ballot. Somebody filled out a ballot on their behalf and they shipped it in. As a result, here's the evidence. Here's the names of outcome determinative voter fraud conducted during the 2020 election. Then I would say, oh, shit. While I still think January 6, 2021 is fucked up because you didn't present this evidence prior to staging your gay little coup, I would go, oh, shit, the Democrats actually did try to steal 2020, and they did commit outcome determinative election fraud that makes President Biden an illegitimate president. I would literally change my fucking tune. But everybody makes these fucking claims, and then they don't back them up at all. And they throw shit. You can tell they throw shit at the wall, okay? Because Georgia... no offense, is not exactly known as the most politically enlightened state in the country. It's actually kind of known as a pretty conservative place. I understand that it leans Democrat because of black folk, but it's an incredibly socially conservative place. And Georgia law enforcement, you think fucking Floridian cops are a little bit conservative and say a little bit of spicy shit? Georgian law enforcement does not give a fuck. Those are some good old boy fucking redneck motherfuckers. So... there was 300,000 improperly sealed votes in the state of Georgia. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations, their state police, once again, good old boys who hunt pigs with spears. Okay? I'm gonna emphasize this point real quick. Boar hunting with spears, Georgia. I want you to imagine an entire law enforcement division made up of people like this. Okay? There are dudes with this physiognomy, this skull shape, and this body shape. Let me move my camera out of the way. And they hunt 200 to 500 pound pigs with spears. With spears. They hunt 200 to 500 pound pigs. Okay? This is what they do for fun. Anyways. So the point is, those guys went to the fucking 300,000 fucking labeled votes, and they went through them, and they fucking said, okay, they didn't seal them properly, but we went ahead and checked out all the votes. All the votes line up to actual voters. Therefore, these votes are valid. Therefore, fuck you. You know? That's what happened in Fulton County. So, you want me to believe Republicans when they complain about fucking mass voter fraud? You want me to believe that mail-in voting is like a huge fucking problem for fraud? Prove it. In a court of law, out of a court of law, I don't give a shit. But you need to fucking prove it. You can't just be saying shit and expect me to go along for the fucking ride. Old School for the Two says, Romulans, Klingons, Bajorans, the founders, Jen Hadar. I am working on it. I was going to work on... I'm going to work through the Star Trek races because a lot of them are quite sapient. Borg obviously need to get genocided, right? I think we can agree that Borg need to get fucking genocided, right? Connor, play Mass Effect so you can be racist upon space Romans. Sounds good. Sounds like a good time to me. Who is this, though? I want to properly thank you for the donation. Sorry for the dead air. I want to properly thank the people who are donating. Oh, wait, is it Old School? No, that was Jeb Cush. Jeb Cush with the 5. Thank you, Jeb Cush. And then Old School with the 5 says, the fraud in LA mayoral race was in Nitya Raman running. She worked for years, and now that primary is over, Raman has disappeared completely. I don't know. Maybe I'll Google that while we're continuing. Nitya Raman was running in the primary, and then she disappeared? So what you're saying she ran in the primary as a Republican and then split the vote or something? What are you accusing Nitya Raman of? Anyways.
The idea that elections can't be stolen. I always say to people, okay, do you think that the amount of election fraud is 0%? No one thinks that.
Yeah.
No one thinks it's 0.
Exactly.
There's always some overzealous person that works somewhere that's doing something. There's always crazy people that like blue no matter who, we got to win, or red no matter what. There's always people, right and left, that are going to try to rig the election because they think it's imperative. Look, we saw... There was people like Oprah Winfrey was saying it. Like, if we don't win this election, you may never vote again. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, why? Who's going to tolerate that? Left or right? That's crazy.
That's right.
But that attitude allows people to justify cheating.
Correct.
And I think they cheat. And I think they've been doing it forever. And I don't think there's any other reason why you would have no voter ID. And they try to say, oh, it's racist to have voter ID. Like, what are you talking about? Do you think other races are incapable of going to the DMV? That's insane.
Yeah, that's racist. It's actually super racist.
That's really racist.
Right, the implication of their argument is literally like blacks and Hispanics cannot go to the DMV to get an ID. By the way, if you look at the polling, Black Americans are as pro-voter ID. Even though most Black Americans vote Democrat, they're still pro-voter ID as much as white Americans is.
Most Americans are voter ID. They want voter ID, except for operatives.
So I'll offer on the Joe Rogan podcast this deal as vice president of these United States, that if Democrats really don't think that there's any cheating, give us voter ID.
I just don't know
give
how
us voter
it's
ID, and we'll stop talking so much about elections.
Why is that not a federal thing?
We are trying to make it a federal thing. So we are right now trying to pass the Save America Act. One of its main provisions is a requirement that you do voter ID. And we actually have, I think, a majority of the Senate that would support it. But this is just weird Senate procedural bullshit. There is a subsegment of people who want voter ID but won't blow up the filibuster in order to achieve it. And so they're so married to these old world Senate procedures that they're going to make it impossible for us to pass Save America. Now, we are, for what it's worth, trying to fix that and trying to address these like weird procedural archaic things. It's insane, though. Like, if you ever, okay, I'm sure you hear people talk about the filibuster all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. Here's what the filibuster is. It is a pure Senate rule It is a creation of the Senate procedures, which basically says that anything that has to do with the budget is a 50-vote threshold. And everything else, non-budgetary, is a 60-vote threshold. Now, as you can imagine, there's some gray area on things that maybe count as budget issues and should be 50, or are not budget issues and count at 60. So what we have tried to persuade the Senate to do is to treat the voter ID as something that can fall within the 50-vote threshold. And there is no law, there's no provision in the Constitution. It is legitimately that there are senators who are so attached to the idea that budget is 50, non-budget is 60, that they're quite literally willing to prevent voter ID in America.
God.
It's nuts, dude.
It's so crazy. Nuts. And it's also like the idea that somehow or another, like Kathy Hochul had the craziest take on it.
She often does.
Did you see her take on it?
I have not.
She was talking about black people in inner cities not even knowing what a computer is. Did you ever see that?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh my God, it was so crazy. And then this one comedian, this black comedian, did this hilarious video where he was like circling around a computer, staring at it, like touching it, like he didn't know what it was. It's just like, what are you talking about? Everyone has a phone. That's a computer.
So many of these Democratic talking points presume that their own voters are actual idiots.
Yeah.
Right? That's actually, there's a big difference between, Republicans, we sort of presume that our voters are adults, and you don't see that with I'm not saying every Democrat, of course, I don't want to cast too broad of a brush here, but it's like, Gavin Newsom did this speech a few months ago. The president, I think it's the funniest thing ever, because he's like speaking to a group of black leaders and black businessmen, but it's like an audience that is 95% black. And they're asking him about his dyslexia and his struggle with education. And he basically says, yeah, I'm not very smart like a lot of you. And it's like,
I'm like you. I can't even read.
I can't even read. Like,
meanwhile, there's a ton of interviews where he's talking about all the books he reads. Like he's so full of shit.
Yeah, he's full of shit, but it's
admirably full of shit.
Now, allegedly, that with context is not as bad as it sounds, but I will admit I genuinely did love the fucking memes. Like go into a black audience and being like, I'm just like you. It's like, what the fuck, man? Hold up. Let's see if we can eliminate a little bit of disinformation on behalf of our boy Newsom real quick. Gavin Newsom, I'm just like you video. Hold up. Hold on. Why isn't the audio working? God damn it. All right, hold on. Hold on. Could be worth it. Jen Winkler. Thank you for the 5. Also, new Counterpoint Sci-Fi out. Gunnery Sergeant Bobby Draper killing a hybrid. That's pretty sweet. And then, what was it? Gavin Newsom, I'm like you. Hold up.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to impress upon you. I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. and I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. Maybe the wrong business to be in.
That's not that bad. That's not that bad. It's not, hey, I put hot sauce in my purse. I did love the Hillary Clinton hot sauce in my fucking purse comment. God, what a classic. God, what a classic. Okay, how do I want to put a cherry on top of this one? I think Democrats have an non-enviable position of pandering to multiple members of their coalition. So, in order to keep the gays happy, they have to go to Pride and suck on a dildo. In order to keep the blacks happy, they have to say that they put hot sauce in their fucking purse. In order to keep the upper class whites happy, they have to go to cocktail dinners and drink white wine. And then in order to keep the working class blue collar guys happy, they have to go to a 400 square foot apartment and pretend. Do you guys remember the Hillary Clinton looking at what a small Hillary Clinton small apartment? And in order to keep up with union people, they have to go to a 400 square foot apartment and pretend that they're not shocked at how small and shitty small apartments are. So I am not envious. She literally looks shocked. She's like, this sucks. I know it's just a picture. I know it's easy to fucking dunk on Democrats whenever they pander. But, you know, with Republicans, you just have to go, don't all those people suck? Don't union people suck because they're bloated administrative bureaucrats who suck up money into the administrative field instead of paying the actual hard workers who actually work? You know, elect me and I'll cut through the red tape and you'll get to keep more of your cash. And then same thing with like rich people. They can just go, haha, vote for me and I'll cut your taxes because fuck the federal government. That's why. You know, Republicans have an infinitely easier job to pander. I wish I was better at it. I wish I didn't believe in virtue or representative democracy or the mythos of America or the power of the global hegemon maintaining world trade and world trade being necessary for human thriving. I wish I could just be like, hey, don't you hate immigrants? Don't you hate black people? Don't you hate gays? Aren't they all annoying as shit? Vote for me. I'll cut your taxes. I wish I could do that. I'm just unfortunately my parents raised me better than that. Oh, God damn it.
I admire the fucking the sheer tenacity that he has in being full of shit.
Because
it's
agree.
amazing.
It really is amazing. But it speaks to the incentives of there's kind of like, look, there's a real populism that I'm very much a fan of because I think you should be responsive to people. But there's like a faux populism of the way that
we can't have nice things and be retarded as a country. Number one, yes, we can. Number two, that based off of your evaluation, we should never have any nice things because I do not see America ever not being R-slurred.
I'm going to appeal to people is by assuming that they're idiots and acting like they're idiots.
Yeah.
And then, but if you're committed enough to that bit, eventually it kind of leaks out what you're doing. And I think that was sort of what Gavin did there, is he told on himself a bit.
Yeah. Well, he's bizarre.
Dude, I will say,
he's a bizarre guy.
I've only met Gavin. I think I've only met him one time in my life, and it's such a crazy experience. So, the debate between Biden and Trump during the 2024 cycle, and I'm there. I'm actually doing an interview for a documentary when the debate starts. And there's this clip of me. The debate starts. I'm in the middle of this interview. There's a big screen behind me as I'm talking to the camera, which is here. And I kind of freeze. And I look back at the TV and I'm like, oh my God, like this is actually happening. Biden is imploding. Because if you remember, it was obvious from the get-go. So I go to the spin room afterwards. And that's where, you know, all these reporters and all the surrogates of the candidates. This is before I was the VP nominee. And I'm just like, you know, talking about how great the president did, how bad President Biden did. Okay. I see Gavin Newsom there, and he literally looks like he's seen a ghost. Like I've never seen a person who, as good of a bullshitter as he is, who realized there was no selling that performance. Like, but can you imagine? Like, try to put yourself in the perspective of a human being. I always try to, be empathetic.
Hey guys, who's that hot alien lady, but she's like she has a parasite that lives multiple lifetimes in a host, and she used to be a dude in a past life, but now she's like fully embodied a hot chick. I think she's in Deep Space Nine. Star Trek Deep Space Nine parasite lady. What do they call her? There we go. Jadzia Dax. Yeah, Dax. There we go.
Where Joe Biden has just had that debate, and you have to go on CNN to talk about how great of a job Joe Biden did.
Well, my favorite is Joe Scarborough, because Joe Scarborough before it was like, I'm going to say something and F you if you can't take it. This is the sharpest Biden we've ever seen. Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's amazing. And then after the debate, he's like, we got to get rid of him. He's got to go. He's got to go, hey, what did you say? You just said a couple of months ago, this is the best Biden ever.
That's wild.
Well, it's like, I wonder what was going on with that. Because, like, the debates were earlier than they've ever been before. And it seemed to me, it's like there was a concerted effort to hide what was wrong with him.
100%.
100%.
Yes.
Everybody was bullshitting.
Yes.
Everybody was gaslighting us.
Correct.
We all saw it. I remember a friend of mine who's super progressive, super liberal. When I talked about it on a podcast, I'm like, this is crazy. Even if he wins, he's not going to be the guy that's the president. You're going to have his cabinet that are running everything.
Yeah.
Turned out I was right. And they were saying, oh, don't you understand that he has a stutter? And I said, where the fuck was that stutter in the 1990s? Like, that's crazy.
That's right.
Like, a stutter that only shows up when you're 80? That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lie. You're lying. He's had 2 brain surgeries, like, where they have to take the top of your head off. Literally, they have to take, like, a cap.
Wait, Biden had 2 brain surgeries?
Oh, yeah.
How did I not know this?
You didn't know this?
I didn't know that he had 2 brain surgeries.
He had 2 brain surgeries. Jimmy, please look this
Wow.
up. Make sure that I'm right. I'm 99% sure I'm right, but I know he had
So did
one
he
that
get
was
a
like
refund afterwards?
Well, it kept him alive. It kept him alive. I mean, Biden has not undergone recent brain surgery. He underwent 2 successful, life-saving
Oh, wow.
brain surgeries to repair 2 intracranial aneurysms in 1988.
I did not know this.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
His medical professionals have stated that he made a full recovery and suffered no lasting brain damage or cognitive impairment from these procedures. Oh, it's from the Washington Post, so you know it's accurate and definitely not biased at all. And these medical professionals, were those the same people that said that the COVID vaccine is safe and effective?
Damn. Joe Rogan has just straight up become like a brain-rotted conservatarian, huh? And by the way, I say this as a conservatarian. I say this with much love, but it does seem like he does what I do. Okay, you take half a dozen factoids that line up with your narrative. You never Google them ever again. So, for instance, if you checked out Biden in the late 80s and early 90s, his surgery in the late 80s, and you take a look at him talking about Russia, you take a look at him talking about NATO expansion. You take a look at him talking about the conflict in the former Yugoslavia. Biden is sharp. He's witty. He's funny. He's going for it. If the Biden of 1996 was running in 2024, then I would have no problems fucking checking that goddamn box. Of course, gun control would piss me the fuck off. But we're not looking at Java porn, you butt fucking son of a bitch. But the point is that, like, oh, he had brain surgery in 1988, which is why it explains he's demented now. No, he's just old, man. He's just old. Okay? I know that I split with my audience on whether or not we believe Joe Biden was demented leading up to the fucking 24 election. I think he was. I know plenty of you don't think he was. But I don't know why we're reaching back to 1988 for anti-hemorrhagic brain surgery when he was sharp during the 90s. That now you just have this like fucking dumb talking point regurgitated by JD Vance, regurgitated by fucking Joe Rogan to tens of millions of people, where they're going to be like, oh yeah, you want to vote for the guy who had 2 brain surgeries? What an asshole. And it's like, I guess that's my my beef right now. It's not whether or not what you said is true, which is that he had brain surgery in the late 80s. It's more like this is going to be a useful talking point for dipshits. And I want good talking points for smart people, not bad talking points for dipshits. Right? Do I have to consider Doctor Who aliens? Well, everybody says that somebody said the Time Lords. Is it this race? No, not the Time Lords. Who are the genocidal species from Doctor Who? Because if they're trying to genocide everybody, then we have to genocide them. The Daleks, the dick suckers, the Daleks. Yeah, we gotta genocide the Daleks, right? Pretty sure. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But don't these guys like travel through time and space and they fucking hunt the Time Lords and shit, and they're also like genocidal towards all other species? If you're genocidal to all other species, you're going to get genocided. Right? Fair?
That's right. We live in a wonderful time for bullshit. It's like, because they just bullshit you right to your face. Like,
We do.
He had 2 brain surgeries, like major brain surgeries, because he's having aneurysms. I don't care who you are. That's probably going to do some damage.
It's going to leave some...
Aneurysms are
leave an impact.
a real problem.
That's a real thing.
Your brain
People
is
die.
bleeding.
People die.
Yeah.
People die from aneurysms all the time. See, that's the crazy thing is I never even knew about that.
How'd you not know about that? That's nuts. I knew about it.
Well, it speaks to how constrained our media environment is that even I had never heard
Right.
that.
It was not a part of the narrative. It's certainly not from
No.
the Democrats. But yeah, it was clearly, I just don't understand why they ran him in the first place. The whole thing made no sense. And then to have no primary and just stick Kamala in there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden pretend that she's the best thing ever. And like,
Hold on, I gotta pause again because I think it was Andy B, but it was somebody. They said, Gungans should be on the genocide list. Misa think the solution should be final. Listen, guys, I get up 5 days a week in order to stream for 5 hours to help pay my bills and, you know, all that kind of bullshit. But I'm not going to lie. The fact that we can make a Gungan Holocaust joke and that's a part of my workday, that's just absolute fire. That just makes me so unbelievably happy.
this idea, like complete flip of her being the least
wild.
popular vice president ever, always sticking her foot in her mouth, always saying crazy shit. How dare we say Merry Christmas? You remember that one? Like, what the fuck is... What are you saying?
Yeah.
Like, joy is bad? Merry Christmas is bad?
Legitimately, when the campaign consultants told me, hey, we're going to hit this line because Kamala Harris came out in favor of taxpayer-funded sex changes for illegal aliens. And I remember thinking to myself, come on, you guys. Like, she didn't really say that. It's taken out of context. And then I go and look at it, and I'm like, holy shit. She actually said that. And she really was like the very worst version of what the Democrats were producing in 2020. The thing is, they were all doing it because that was the incentives of the party. Like, if you remember that debate where it was, do you want taxpayer-funded Medicare for illegal aliens? Which, like, Medicare is the program to provide health care to the elderly that people pay into for, like, you know, your entire working life. You see your little Medicare tax statement. And the idea that we were going to give taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens, it was just insane. It was a 90-10 issue, but their party in 2020 got kind of taken over by the radicals. And I think actually maybe you're seeing a little bit of that happening right now, where it seems like the radical organizations, the nonprofits, the donors are pushing the party in a direction that most of the voters haven't gone in. Like, you ask why Joe Biden was the nominee, and I'll say something in defense of Joe Biden. So, like, was he the most effective politician? No. Had he had 2 brain surgeries? Yes, and clearly had shown the negative signs of aging. but he was kind of the only candidate, if you go back to 2020, who could hold together like the reasonable middle class Black American in the Atlanta suburbs with whatever is going on the far left of the Democrat Party. And I think this is sort of the issue their party has. I mean, to be candid, our party has its own coalition problems, and it's always tough in a two-party system to hold everybody together. Like, I think about this a lot. I think it's really tough on the Democrats because the core of their party, like the most important voting bloc in the Democratic Party, is middle-class Black Americans. Socially moderate to even socially conservative, maybe a little bit more economically populist on certain business and tax issues. You know, they don't want to give tax breaks to major corporations. They also don't want to trans the kids. That's the base of their party. But then you've also got like the crazy people, and you have to kind of hold that together. I think the argument for Biden was he was one of the only people who could hold that together, even though he was an awful politician in his own right, even before he was like old.
Well, it's because he was Obama's vice president.
Exactly.
And, you know, he's...
Hold up. I would like specific citations for why Joe Biden is a bad president. Because I actually, checking out the 80s and 90s shit, dude, he was like a neo-lib, neo-con. I understand like laissez-faire economics, arguably from a national conservative perspective, are responsible for gutting American industry and offshoring jobs and depressing the middle class and the working class. And if you want to make those arguments, I would love to hear them. But that was also just the political momentum at the time. So economic populism has really only been popular, I would say, with the rise of Bernie Sanders. So really like the past 10 years. And up until then, it was like, no. Offshoring everything, letting jobs go overseas. Yeah, sure. You might lose your blue collar $50K a year, $60K a year manufacturing job, but you're going to save so much money at Walmart, you know? And also, you're kind of like the least important Rust Belt, Midwest fucking person, so fuck you, right? So if Vance wanted to articulate that, I would be happy to listen to it. But with Joe Biden, otherwise, he was like a union dude, right? He fucked with the unions. So there he is fucking with J.D. Vance's number one demographic that he panders to. The immigration shit was a fucking nightmare, but immigration has been a nightmare for the past 50 fucking years. So, you know, I would like to hear why, and then I would view those speeches from Joe Biden about like the former Yugoslavia and NATO expansion. I'd be like, oh my God, this is like a neocon. This is like a neoconservative wet dream. This is amazing. So I don't know what this motherfucker's talking about, and I would prefer some specificity. Conservative says, Cotter expecting the VP of MAGA to earnestly explain his propaganda instead of just manufacturing whatever sticks to the wall is adorable. Yeah, well, unfortunately, I did this thing. My parents raised me to do this thing, which is I say things that are inside my brain rather than just saying things in order to push you guys where I want you to be politically, ideologically, socially, and culturally. So, unfortunately, I'm not manipulating you intentionally, if I manipulate you at all. I'm literally just articulating what I earnestly believe, and I think the world would be a better place if more people did it. Anyways, let's get the Gungans on the genocide map. Unfortunately, I know there's a lot of jokes about the Gungans, but I think the Gungans are going to be a race where I think you can't just genocide a race because they're annoying. Right? They're omnivorous. They're sapient. They don't really like fuck with the human Naboo too much. They don't have any aspirations for conquest. They're not genocidal. They're isolationist. So just because they're annoying as shit doesn't mean that I think you can genocide them. I know that's probably a hot take, but, you know.
He's established, he's a known name, and for the people that were kind of casuals that weren't really paying attention to politics, like he's a proven commodity.
That's right. He doesn't read as a crazy person to the general electorate, even though, you know.
I got hairy legs. When he would tell stories like, oh, I'll tell you about corn pop. Like, what?
Oh,
what the fuck is going on?
The thing I couldn't get over Biden is just bad staff work, man. the way that he ate ice cream, I mean, it's like, we could bring some of this stuff up, but it's like they would get him eating ice cream in the most ridiculous, suggestive way imaginable.
I never even paid.
All right, I'm fast forwarding 10 because I don't give a shit about these two fucking jerking each other off about how awkward the fucking Democrats are. Okay, the Democrats are awkward. They're kind of shitty. Sometimes their optics suck ass. I get it. And then also something that they haven't talked about is gun control, which I think there needs to be a cultural revolution on the left about privately owned firearms. It's a losing issue. Every time a state legislature passes an assault weapons ban, I just think to myself, fuck you. This is why I hate you. It's because there are solutions for mass murder, mass shootings, and gang murders and domestic violence murders. But banning a category of weapon is not going to be the solution that actually solves these issues. It's a Band-Aid. It doesn't do anything. So democratic ignorance on firearms has to end. But there's real shit to fight about, like, what is the role of government? How much of Maslow's hierarchy of needs should the government help you climb? What's a reasonable amount of taxation? Are we a libertarian or conservatarian society where the state should be minimalist? Or are we a social democracy where we should max out our welfare state in order to make sure that working class and middle class Americans are always provided for in every degree imaginable? And for me, that's like the real fight is leftism, socialism, and communism becoming more popular is frustrating to me. But the real fight is, what is the role of government in the United States? Are we a libertarian minimalist state where free people should be as productive as possible in order to take care of themselves as much as possible? Or are we a social democracy with a robust welfare state? That's the real fight. Anyways.
Or if my kid sat in a classroom as a Christian and saw, a religious text that wasn't Christian on the wall, I would encourage them to see that. No, I'd encourage them to see that as a learning experience. Try to understand
what if it was
things.
from the Quran? What if a bunch of
I guess it depends on what it was, right? If it's like something crazy, but no, I mean, if it's something that is like culturally interesting, I guess I don't have a problem with my kid reading something.
The problem is,
weirdly enough, I agree with JD Vance here. I think that what's worrying about the separation of the church and state, this is an interesting issue. What's worrisome about the separation of church and state being violated in reference to the Ten Commandments being on the walls of schools, which is what they're talking about right now, is the promotion of Christianity specifically when we do not have a state religion. But let's say that we took something from the Old Testament. What's like a good psalm? What's a good psalm? What are some of the best psalms from the Old Testament? The Lord is my shepherd, I still not want. Be still, know that I am God. There's a little bit too much God shit in here. But if, let's say there was a psalm that was specifically not like, or a proverb. How about a proverb? I think Proverbs would be better. Best Proverbs, Old Testament. Oh, here we go. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That's perfect. We recite the iron litany sometimes before stream. Right? Instruct a wise person, he will be wiser. Teach a righteous person, and he will increase in learning. Nothing wrong with that one. Listen to advice and accept discipline, and at the end, you will be counted among the wise. That's not bad. That doesn't have any, like, specific, like, you must believe in God shit. So, anyways, there are proverbs that if you put up there, they wouldn't be a problem. As a matter of fact, I love as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That's perfect. And then with the Quran, there is the Quran, if you save one life, surah. And whoever saves one life, it's as if he has saved all of mankind, right? So let's say we had some Hindu Bhagavad Gita fucking quote, as iron sharpens iron, you know, whatever sharpens a man. Do unto others is whatever. The 10 Commandments, and then fucking from the Surah, we got whoever saves one life, it's as if he saved all of mankind. I wouldn't give two flying fucks, even as like an agnostic, or for if an atheist was bitching like we shouldn't have all this religious bullshit up on the walls, I'd kind of be like, you know, go find some fucking cringe atheist saying from your fucking satanic church, and we'll fucking throw it up on the wall too. You know? So, I would be okay with that if it was more egalitarian. I think, of course, what Joe Rogan is uncomfortable with, what a lot of people are uncomfortable with, is the promotion of a single religion over all the other ones. So, let's go.
It's mandated. Like if you have a classroom and the teacher is Christian and the teacher wants to have it in their classroom, maybe that's one thing. But if you're mandating that you're going to have the 10 Commandments in classrooms, that's a different thing, because now you're pushing Christianity on kids. And this is Tallarico's position. And as a Christian, he's saying, I think this is going to push children away from Christianity.
So I understand what he's saying. I think that part of living in a society where you have different people with different perspectives, but you do have, I mean, Christianity is the majority religion of the United States. It is the religion that was extraordinarily influential to our founding, to the constitutional principles. Again, freedom of religion is itself not really a liberal concept. It was originally derived from a Christian idea about free will and the dignity of the person. I think part of that is that you accept that you're going to have exposure to different things. And if a state legislator in a majority Christian state wants to, it's not like they're putting the 10 Commandments in front of these kids and saying, you have to read this and, you know, write it 500 times a day. They're exposing kids to something. And I'm comfortable with kids being exposed to a lot of different things. I think that's part of living in a society where there's a free exchange of ideas. And what I worry about with Tallarico's sort of perspective here is again, I'm not saying that I don't want kids to be exposed to anything that is outside of the Christian canon. Like I actually want my kids exposed to things. I write about this in the book, that I think it's important to have a grounded enough faith that you can engage with a lot of different ideas and still ultimately, you know, sort of hold on to your Christian faith. But isn't part of just living in a like pluralistic democracy that people are going to be exposed to different things? And, you know, I would kind of put it on Tallarico in a slightly different way, that for a long time in this country, there were actually Supreme Court rulings that said that you cannot pray in a school, even a student organization led by the students, or that you cannot put the 10 Commandments up, even a teacher who chose to do it in their own classroom. And so I think you're always kind of trying to strike this balance, you know, given that we have the First Amendment in this country, between allowing the practice of religious faith in public spaces and possibly forcing religion on other people. I think you have to strike that balance the right way.
Okay. So let's go with this argumentation for a second. Oh, we had courts in this country deciding that you couldn't display the 10 Commandments even though it was the teacher's own classroom. Well, I'm pretty sure we have prohibitions against like homosexual displays in the state of Florida. Hold on. Can you show pictures of your gay partner in the state of Florida as a teacher? Hold on. I do not have a partner, a job as a teacher, or a physical body, as I am AI. Okay, I wasn't asking you. Hold on. No, Florida teachers are not being told to take down photos of same-sex spouses, but teachers have been cautioned against specific discussions that could be seen as violating the state's limit on instruction of sexual orientation, including gender identity. Tampa Bay area teachers have expressed concern over a new law taking effect in Florida. They fear that it will limit how they can discuss gay issues and identities in certain grade levels. The parental rights and education law, which critics named the Don't Say Gay law, takes effect July 1st. It regulates instruction on topics of sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade, which, by the way, I don't give a fuck about that. School districts may opt to ban topics of sexual orientation or gender identity beyond 3rd grade if it is deemed not to be age or developmentally appropriate. Those standards have not yet been adopted by the state's education department. The gay student advocacy group Equality Florida is suing to block the new law. A viral meme circulating on Instagram claims gay teachers in Orange County, Florida are being told to take down photos of their classrooms of their same-sex spouses and not to talk about it with students. The meme also says all rainbow clothing is being banned and teachers are required to report to parents if a student says they are not straight. So what's the deal? We looked into it. Okay, well, if you want to take a look at this, let's say, let's ignore the practicalities because we could probably actually argue about what's happening, what does the law say, how is it being implemented, et cetera, et cetera. If a teacher is given the right to say, well, this is my personal faith, so I'm going to put a cross up here, and I'm going to put the 10 Commandments up here, and, you know, this is just a personal expression. I'm not trying to force myself on anyone, but this is a huge part of my identity, and therefore, you know, in a pluralistic society, you should be exposed to Christianity. Then how is that rule not going to be applied to gay folk? How are gay folk not going to say being gay is a core part of my identity? Me having a homosexual partner is a core part of my identity. So the same way that the Christian teacher is posting the 10 Commandments is the same way that I'm going to post a picture of me and my husband and I'm going to post a fucking rainbow flag on the wall. Right? I don't understand how, you know, you're going to come up with a universalist rule that applies. Horse God says Carson is on the list, right? Dollar store, Klingons, shake my head. Oh, and the Nalix, not his race, just him. Kaysen is Kaysen from Star Trek or Star Wars? The Kaysen are an aggressive nomadic warrior species in the Delta Quadrant encountered by the USS Voyager in 2371. Divided into 18 warring sects, they are infamous for stealing technology and are considered the only race the Borg refused to assimilate due to being unworthy. Unworthy? The Kaysen are tribalist knockoff Klingons who the Borg are like, ew, gross. That is funny. I'll put them on the Trandoshan, Brute, Dark Eldar tier, where it's like, we're not going to genocide you yet. We'll try to engage in diplomacy. But if you continue to be assholes, we might take you out eventually. Like, that is... I think that's fair, based off of that description. And Nelix, not his entire race, just him. I don't know who... Nelix... Star Trek. Sorry, we're doing a genocide tier list. Oh, isn't he nice? I thought Nelix was a good character. Talaxian Mylian hybrid. Neelix was played by Star Trek veteran actor Ethan Phillips. Neelix was one of the last... What was wrong with Neelix? I thought he was like a happy-go-lucky moral counselor guy. What was wrong with Neelix? You don't like Neelix? Huh.
I guess I just say is that if the 10 Commandments being in a classroom is the thing that you think is forcing religion on somebody, was he equally offended when the 10 Commandments were like quite literally prohibited from being listed in a public building?
I don't know if he was offended by that or if he was opposed to that. But the idea of being exposed to it is one thing. It being mandatory is another. And to mandate that in classrooms is a different thing because you're clearly promoting Christianity. And his position is that promoting Christianity in that way is going to have an opposite effect on children. You're pushing it on them. Instead, you're not just exposing it to them, you're pushing it on them. And especially if you're pushing it on children who come from a household that has a different faith.
I guess I just think the balance in our country the last 30, 40 years has actually been much more in the other direction, which is that we try to completely remove religion from the public square. And I think that poses its own problems because, people practice their faith in all kinds of
But
ways.
don't you think that that's the responsibility of churches and synagogues
Sure.
and wherever that, like, if you want and in the community, if you want to promote religion, promote it that way. But promoting in public schools should be just educational. And if you're in a religious class and a class is teaching about religion, that's a different story.
Well, you're right. It's certainly the responsibility of churches and synagogues and mosques and so forth. But I also think that, the late Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist sort of said this, that if your approach to religion in public life always and everywhere is to push it out of the public square, then you're actually embracing a religion of your own in the public square, which is secularism. You're just taking one religion and replacing it with secularism. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm kind of comfortable with people of different faiths sharing the public square together. But part of that is that if I'm in a 95% Christian community and my local city council wants to put up a nativity display on Christmas Eve, I'm okay with that. And that was actually, like, for a long time in our country, actually prohibited.
Yeah.
And so what I think is that we sort of put ourselves in this frame in this country where we said every public display of religion is somehow illegitimate. But I mean, I don't know. I try to live my faith in a way that's consistent across different spheres of my life. I don't preach to people. I don't like walk into the White House and tell my employees, you need to follow Jesus as your Lord and Savior. I just try to live my life in a way that hopefully makes people a little curious about what motivates me and what inspires me. But I also don't think that the expectation should be that we tell religious people they're not allowed to be religious in the public square, because I think that's what we've done over the last 30 or 40 years. I guess, we can agree to disagree. I see the Texas thing as an attempt to correct that.
This episode is brought to you by Fox Nation, Real American Freestyle.
All right. I hope we get into some Epstein files or some Iran war shit. Matter of fact, isn't there a way to do a transcript? Where's the transcript? How do you do transcripts? Transcript. Yeah, I'm gonna do transcript for Iran, and I'm gonna do transcript for Epstein, and I'm gonna see which one's first. So Iran. So that's gonna be at 103. Oh shit! They're literally doing it right now. Okay, cool beans. Cool beans. They're literally about to get into Iran right now. Good. All right. Old school for 5. Replace the 10 Commandments and the rainbow flag with the Constitution in old schools. True. If you want to have an American civic nationalist religion, I'm not going to complain at all. And obviously, I don't want people to worship the state the way that people worship God, but I do want people to carry some kind of reverence for republicanism within the United States. Let me thank everybody who's donated today. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you're enjoying it, even though I'm just talking about genociding aliens and watching J.D. Vance talk to Joe Rogan. But old school, Horse God, Jen Winkler with the 5 gifted, Fell Runner, old school, Jeb Kush, old school, Officer Nasty, and Vazraka. Thank you for your financial support today. I do deeply appreciate it. All right.
We have to do is just have humility in the face of God's plan. There's a lot that we don't understand. There's a lot that we don't get. And I think especially on matters of war and peace, the approach that I try to take is you try to make the best decisions that you can. You hope that you're on God's side. You don't assume that God has taken your side. That's a very famous Abraham Lincoln quote, and that's the attitude that I take. So for that, what I would encourage that NCO to say is, you know what? God is in control. We don't know what's going to happen, but let's pray and try to do as good of a job as we can, trusting in God. If I was speaking to a group of Christian troops, that's what I would say.
But you're speaking to a group of troops.
Sure.
You don't know if they're Christian. You don't know. I mean, you're essentially letting these people know that you believe that Trump was anointed by Jesus to bomb Iran so that Jesus can come back to
Jesus
Earth.
come back in a fire
If
of
I was
Armageddon.
there, I'd be like, can I get the fuck out of here?
Yeah, no,
How do
I hear
out-
you,
how
man.
do
I
get
hear
out
you.
of the
Look,
military?
yes, and That is the first that I have ever heard of this particular story.
How
but
have you not heard of this and Biden's 2 brain surgeries?
apparently, I live in a bunker, man.
How do you not know about these things?
Man,
That's
that is
crazy.
wild. Okay, here's the other thing I'll say is having heard about this for the first time just now, to your point about the media, I do think it's possible, let's be honest, that whatever that dude said, maybe it was good, maybe it was bad, has been misreported by the press. So
It's
I
possible.
always have a filter on
certainly
this stuff.
possible.
Like I don't automatically assume.
It's also possible that this is the other thing. He said the commander supposedly had a big grin on his face when he said all this, which made his message seem even more
Yes.
crazy.
And I think that's, again, I don't think anybody should have. Look, war is sometimes necessary, but it's never a good thing. And I think that's like a fundamental Christian principle: is there are just wars, there are necessary wars, but war is always something that you try to avoid.
Right, but saying that this is what's being referenced in the book of Revelation.
Yeah, dude, I think that is nuts. I also don't know that I
Right.
want to I want to
get
confirm
you.
that this person actually said that before teeing off on it, because what that sounds to me is like somebody butchering or misrepresenting something that somebody that I know might have said.
Quite possible.
So
Quite
you
possible.
got to be skeptical
also
about
quite
that. So that's all I'm
possible that
saying.
you got a really loony guy who is a Christian nationalist, who is a commander, and who is in this position where he's actually excited because he does think that this is a holy war and this is going to bring back Jesus.
Well, it's certainly possible. I mean, America's got 330 million people, and we've got a lot of people who believe in a lot of things, but I can assure you that we don't encourage people to talk like that. And again, all I can do as a Christian leader, I'll look into that story certainly, but all I can do as a Christian leader is talk about how I think about questions of war and peace.
Listen, JD Vance is a chameleon who craves power, who has put himself into a position of power, swept for the Iran war as a matter of pragmatism. And then also, not only did he sweep for the Iran war as a matter of pragmatism so he could stay in Donald Trump's good graces, but he's also swept for the Epstein files by even like minimally right now. We are on the verge of the midterms where the Trump administration is actively sweeping for an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring. I don't know if you guys heard this story the other day, but the state of Arizona has asked for all Department of Justice related files to the Zorro Ranch, and they have been denied by the Department of Justice repeatedly over the course of the past 6 months. That is vile. There is an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring that conducted criminal activity inside the state of Arizona. Arizona has been made aware of it, regardless of whether or not they were sweeping for it before. They're actively pursuing criminal prosecution against anybody who committed said crimes in their state, and the federal Department of Justice is giving them the fucking runaround. Department of Justice is currently sitting on, I think what is it, like the total amount of files is like 7 million. They've released 3.5 million, and another 3.5 million remain in the custody of the Department of Justice, and they refuse to release it, and Congress is not holding them accountable. That is fucking repulsive. Repulsive. Okay? So, I'm taking everything that JD Vance says with a huge amount of fucking salt, because he is, by not actively calling this shit out and by not waking up every single day and saying, release the files, release the files, release the files, fire me as vice president, fuck you, release the files. He's complicit. So, he might be making all the right mouse sounds, but I don't trust this motherfucker further than I can throw him.
Piece, which is we try to do the right thing. We try to figure out what it is that is consistent with Christ's moral teaching, and we try to, comport our foreign policy with the cause of justice. And that's what we try to do, recognizing it's always going to be imperfect. But I don't think that we should ever have an attitude towards war like this is a great thing. I'm going to grin and smile about that. All I'm saying is I'm skeptical that anybody took that approach because the media misrepresents everything.
Why don't you go check the fucking White House Twitter page, JD Vance? Why don't you go see how they're fucking talking about the Iran war? Because I'm pretty sure they're putting fucking airstrike compilations to Freebird right now. So, sorry, these words do not represent the actions of the current administration. Old School does point out that it's not in Arizona, it's in New Mexico. Okay. Understood.
Do you think that the way that you just described it, aligns with our campaign in Iran?
Well, I think that the goal is certainly good, which is to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And I think that there are obviously a lot of questions about how best to achieve that. There's both a short-term and a long-term piece of it. I think the short-term piece of it is effectively what's already been done, which is you destroy the nuclear sites and you destroy and eliminate the ability to rebuild the nuclear sites. I think there's a longer-term thing, which is where like a lot of the debate is focused on right now, which is that building a nuclear program is hard, but it's not impossible. And it's expensive, but it's actually not even that expensive if you look at, I mean, you could go on YouTube right now and find out how to build an atomic bomb. So part of our Iran policy, and this is where I get frustrated with the people who say you should never negotiate with Iran, part of our Iran policy is like solving the long-term problem. That if we could create the sort of circumstance where Iran would commit not just to not have a nuclear weapon right now, but over the long term to not try to rebuild that capacity, like, yeah, I think that is a good and valuable thing.
If it was your call, would you have done exactly the same thing?
Well, what did the president said publicly that JD was less enthusiastic about it, I think was the exact phrase that he used. I mean, my attitude towards this, man, is, as you know, is the vice president, I'm not a public commentator. Like, my job is to give the best advice I can to the President of the United States. I think he's said a little bit about what that advice was. But once the president makes a decision, so long as I think that it's, you know, legal and ethical and all that stuff, and I certainly think whether you agree or disagree with it, what we've done has been legal. My attitude towards it is
We argued about this when the Iran war first launched, because obviously whenever you do a war, you're supposed to seek authorization from Congress. These are definitely acts of war. This is definitely one of the largest air campaigns probably since the launch of the War on Terror. It's reminiscent of the shock and awe campaign prior to the invasion of Iraq. And so, you know, the problem is I don't know about legality. I know about enforcement, right? Enforcement is with Congress, and Congress is refusing to enforce it. If they want to pull the plug, if they want to say, nope, you guys have fucked around for too much, it's been a few months, you guys are dickheads, we're not funding any more bombs for Iran, they could. But of course, it's one of those things where not only for 250 years have presidents leapt before they looked in reference to armed conflict, but it's one of those things that the mechanisms to hold them accountable are just not there. So we just do not have the capacity to hold the executive branch accountable when it comes to armed conflict. So we're kind of fucked in that regard. Now, for those of you who haven't, I am doing a genocide tier list for aliens that I would kill. And the truth is, I would kill pretty much all the aliens from Alien Earth. I don't know if you guys have watched that TV series. It's actually pretty hardcore and pretty fucked up. The plot is a little meandering, but I actually enjoyed all of the weird things that they explored. And if you look at this, you know, looking at the genocide tier list, there's plenty of aliens to kill. So I know that there are those amongst you who are xenophiles. You want to love the alien as long as the alien loves us. And just take a look at this real quick, even though it's unrelated to the content. The aliens that are in the S tier for diplomacy are non-genocidal, you know, decent, diplomatic, intelligent, sapient races. We got the Eldar, we got the Tau, we got the Grunts, we got the Vulcan, we got the Bajorans. Then when it comes to diplomacy first aliens, we got the Ferengi, we got the worm hunters from Halo, we got the Kardashians, we got the Romulans, we got the Founders, we got whatever this blue reptile guy is, we got Dax, we got Gungans, we got Neelix. Now, when it comes to aliens that are hostile to us, have proven their hostility, so we should do unto them as they do unto us, we got elites, also known as Sangheili. We got Jackals, Klingons. We have the Prophet races. I think they're called the San Shayun. We have the Na'vi, the Hutts, and the Wookiees. And by the way, just because Wookiees are presented as like friendly in Star Wars media doesn't mean that they're actually friendly. They're actually like a pretty advanced but insular, violent culture that will beat the shit out of anyone they deem a threat. So while Wookiees are like cute and you want to pet their hair in real life, in the lore of Star Wars, they will effectively whoop the dog shit out of you. I need to put Yautja in here for sure. Yautja, weirdly enough, are probably going to be between C and E and F. Okay? So Dark Eldar, Brutes, whatever these guys are from Mass Effect, somebody listed them as like a race that I should decide whether or not I wanted to genocide. Trandoshans from Star Wars, and then these knockoff Klingons from Deep Space Nine. They're like hostile races that we should be ready to militarily compete with. If they do open up, diplomatic negotiations and stop being see you next Tuesdays, then maybe we could have some kind of relationship. But as long as they aggress upon us, we should be prepared for aggression against these races, effectively. It's like these are races that we are at active war with until they prove otherwise. And then for genocide, orcs are a fungus-based bioweapon. Tyranids you can't negotiate with them. They will literally devour the entire galaxy. Bugs are sentient or sapient, but they're still a vile, carnivorous race that we'll compete for resources. The Reapers literally wipe out the disease, or they wipe out fucking all life within a galaxy. They have to be exterminated. San Shayun, weirdly enough, I put them in the maybe negotiate category, but I also put them in the genocide category because there's plenty of San Shayun who believe that humanity must be genocided. Borg, obviously. And then weirdly enough, the Na'vi, somebody says, what did the Na'vi do to you? Well, with the Na'vi, if they're separated from their world spirit, then they're just another sentient, pseudo-hostile race. The world spirit has to be destroyed. Because for those of you who weren't tracking Avatar lore, the world spirit hijacks the brains of anyone who's connected to it and can command them. And part of its commandments is do not set stone upon stone, nor use metal from the earth or some shit. They keep whatever planet they're a part of and whatever biological organism they hijack, they keep them in the Stone Age in perpetuity. So no, the fate of the human species will not be dictated by some fucking alien parasite plant. Fuck you. So if Na'vi want to live separate from the world spirit, that's fine. But we're destroying the fucking world spirit, right? The Daleks, the Yuuzhan Vong, Daleks are obvious. They're a genocidal species. The Yuuzhan Vong from Star Wars, they're a genocidal species. The Forerunner, even though they're not explicitly genocidal, all the Forerunner that are left are genocidal towards humans. Same things with Engineers. Even though they're sentient and sapient, they're genocidal towards humans. Xenomorphs, the octopus eye creature from Alien Earth, the ticks from Alien Earth, and the flies from Alien Earth, you have to wipe them out. They are repulsive, vile, parasitic, bloodthirsty, carnivorous creatures that cannot be tolerated. You have to kill them with fire. So I'll get the Yautja in here. They'll probably go to EF. And then there was one other species that I was thinking about. But anyways, moving on. JD Vance is making some correct mouth sounds in reference to the Trump administration, but I find the Trump administration so vile that I think he's sullied by it. Good for him for being a political savant sufficient that he can shine up the turd of the Trump administration, but realistically for me, this is him shining up the turd of the Trump administration is not working for me.
I try to make it as successful as possible. And I've got friends, of course, I think, you've expressed some skepticism of this. I've got a lot of friends, both in private and public, who've expressed skepticism of this, who say, well, this is terrible, we disagree with the decision, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a public commentator. My approach to this is not to Monday morning quarterback a decision that was made 3 months ago. My approach to it is to try to make it as successful as possible, which is why I've poured my heart and soul into these negotiations, which is why I've tried to make that goal, Iran not having a nuclear weapon, something that's not true both not just now, but is true in the long term. And that's the way that I try to approach it.
So what is going on with Iran where it seems like the president keeps saying that a deal's been reached, negotiations have been successful, and then it all falls apart and we start bombing them again?
Yeah, so how long do we have here? Because this is a long
got as much
conversation.
time as you need.
So I have to explain a couple of things in the background so you sort of fully appreciate, people fully appreciate what's going on here. So number one, it's a bit of a simplification, but you have two elements within the Iranian system. You have, and you sometimes hear hawkish Americans say this, that they're all crazy people. They want to bring about, the 12th Imam and the apocalypse and all that stuff. Right. There are people in Iran who believe that. They're also pragmatists. You've got the crazy people and you've got the pragmatists, okay? So when we struck this MOU, and really what the MOU says, and it was misrepresented more than almost anything that I've ever worked on in public life. What it says is Iran is going to open the Strait of Hormuz, the violence is going to stop, and then we're going to negotiate to see if we can come to a broader deal on the long-term nuclear issue. That's what we wanted. And what the Iranians wanted, of course, was long-term economic and sanctions relief. Now, here's the problem with where we are right now. And I guess my summary view, Joe, is that I, of course, can't predict the future. I don't know exactly where this is going to go. But I think fundamentally we are on the right trajectory. It's just going to be really messy, and there's going to be a lot of stops and starts. So what happens? The first week after we sign the MOU, we get 20 million barrels a day of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what it was before the war. The price of oil comes way down. And there are elements, the hardliners in the Iranian system kind of freak out a little bit. They're like, oh, shit. Did we just give away our major leverage point? Screw nuclear weapons. We just gave away the so in this MOU. And so there was this kind of freak out in their system. So they shot at a couple ships. We responded. I think that's entirely appropriate, of course. If they're going to shoot at ships, we are going to shoot at the people who are shooting at the ships, or we're going to destroy the facilities that they're using to shoot at ships. So that happens. Okay, and then the Iranians are like, oh, no, fine. You're right. We shouldn't have been shooting at ships. So then they come back to the table. And there's a few more days of negotiation. And then the phase that they're in right now is the hardliners have really, really reacted strongly to all the oil that's coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. And they've basically said, we're going to try to shut this thing down. We're scared about losing our leverage. Now, the pragmatists in their system are saying this was a mistake. Let's keep on talking. And again, do I know how this is ultimately going to shake out? Of course I don't. But what we're doing is a delicate diplomatic dance where we're using economic leverage points. We're using carrots and sticks. We're trying to talk to the pragmatists. And then, of course, when they commit acts of violence, we're responding to it. And all those things are happening simultaneously to get us on a better trajectory. Now, that said, yes, right now there's shooting right now. Last night they shot at some ships. But with all that said, is their nuclear program still destroyed? Yes. Are the straits not necessarily fully pre-war traffic, but are we getting enough oil and gas out of the Strait of Hormuz to prevent a worldwide energy crisis? Yes. And all of these things are happening in the context of the broader negotiation over the nuclear program. You never know where this is ultimately going to end up, but that's where we are. And then can I just say one other thing about this? Because there are people, you see Mike Pence, who's sort of a super hawk, my predecessor, who say this. There are people, who are super hawkish in the American system who have attacked the deal and frankly, in some ways have tried to derail the deal. And what I always say to those people is, what is your proposal? What is your actual argument? So just take the Strait of Hormuz, like the narrowest, but in some ways the most important part of this back and forth right now. Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. To the extent you shut it down, you shut down 25% of the world's energy supply, okay? Joe, you could take $100,000 and go buy a bunch of drones on the black market and post yourself on an island in the Strait of Hormuz or near it, and you could fire drones at those ships, okay? Now, what does that mean? Some oil and gas is still going to get out because some ships and some ship captains are going to say, screw you. Now, the United States can help that, right? We can shoot down some of those drones. We can shoot down some of those missiles. And so we can facilitate the flow of traffic. But the people who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians, the reason why that's fundamentally idiotic is because so long as you have some person who's willing to fire off a few cheap drones, you're going to have some ship captains who say, no, we're not willing to do this. So we got to kind of use all tools at our disposal. The military is one tool, but diplomacy is another tool. And I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. Well, then what is your proposal to get people to stop shooting at ships in the Strait of Hormuz? You can bomb them. You can take away their radar. You can take away some of their drones and some of their missiles, but it's just too easy to fire at ships in the straits. So you've got to actually be willing to talk and to try to figure out the problem.
What is their proposal? The people that think you.
I will be judging JD Vance more harshly off of this comment. Somebody said, Politics JK said, Connor, you said JD Vance should say fire me and sell out. He's the one person who can't be fired. So, interestingly enough, the President of the United States cannot fire the Vice President because the Vice President is an independently elected constitutional officer. They can only leave office through voluntary resignation, death, or removal by Congress. So, I think especially after the midterms, when whatever political damage by the Democrats is done, if JD Vance does not take a stronger stance in the Iran war or in reference to the Epstein files, because he cannot be fired by anybody besides Congress, I will view that as an extreme moral failing. Helping sweep an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring by the President of the United States is an extreme moral failing. And I think it's disbarring for my vote.
You shouldn't negotiate with Iran.
I think that their proposal is to bomb and bomb and bomb. And the honest view, Joe, is that they do not actually have a solution. If you actually ask them, what do you want us to do? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? They'll say things like, well, just bomb them to oblivion. Okay, we can do that. We can drop a lot of bombs. But what does that accomplish if there's still a crazy person who's still unwilling to shoot a few drones at the Strait of Hormuz? What the president has done, I think very, very capably, is said, we're going to use military force in this situation when it's connected to something we're trying to achieve. So if you shoot at ships, we're going to shoot at the facilities at which you used to shoot at the ships. But we're not just going to do something open-ended indefinitely. We're not just going to bomb and bomb and bomb. We're going to try to use our military force as one of the many tools that we have to solve the problem. And obviously, I'm biased, but I think that's exactly the right approach. I think you have to read between the lines a little bit, because if you look at what Mike Pence or some of the conservative hawks, like people who voted for us but have been very critical of me, very critical of the administration, if you actually look at what they're proposing, they just want the military campaign to go on forever, and they can't actually identify what it is that they're trying to accomplish. None of them can identify what it is they're trying to accomplish. And I read two things between the
Nah, bullshit. I guarantee you, if you talk to Mike Pence, not only because he's like Giga Christian, would he potentially be like, let's trigger the apocalypse. Let's have Jesus come back by triggering the book of Revelations. But what he might also say is, if the book of Revelations is not triggered by the conflict in the Middle East and North Africa, then we should go for regime change. Like full bore, have the Houthis, arm the Houthis, fund the Houthis, pay the Houthis, not the Houthis, excuse me. I fucked that up. The Kurds. Fund the Kurds, pay the Kurds, arm the Kurds, give them CIA special forces, have them run around the way that we ran around in northern Iraq during the early stages of the Iraq war. Maybe seize Karg Island and then just fucking airstrike the shit out of the political and military apparatus of the state of Iran until the Iranian people overthrow the regime. I almost guarantee you that if you ask Mike Pence that, though, that would be his two answers. Book of Revelations time and or let's overthrow the regime. So I think it's too expensive. I think it would cost too much in blood and treasure. I think it would be horrific for the Iranian people. But, like I said, I would like to continue to supply small arms and internet terminals to anti-Iranian militias inside Iran for decades until they're ready to overthrow the regime. Because the internet obviously gives you communication to the outside world. It lets you do propaganda. It lets people consume propaganda. So the internet, having internet connections that the government cannot control, monitor, or shut down would be awesome. And then also small arms, AK-47s and fucking RPGs. Because the truth is, it does not take a F-15 or an F-35 to overthrow a government. It takes millions of people who want to overthrow the government. So, arm the Kurds, give them data terminals, arm the militias, give them data terminals, and then just let Iran do its thing. That would be my fucking solution. AK Batusai points out that just because he can't be fired doesn't mean he's immune to plane accidents. I mean, that's absolutely true. And I think when you're playing politics at this level, you do have to determine what are you willing to die for. And what JD Vance is telling us through his actions is he is not willing to die to expose a phobophilic sex trafficking that is the government is helping sweep up right now. He is also not willing to die in order to protest another regime change war in the Middle East and North Africa. So, unfortunately, I think that if you want to wield power in the United States and you claim to be this like isolationist, anti-neoconservative Republican, and if you claim to be a Christian who cares about morality and all that bullshit, put up or shut up. That's how high up in the stratosphere of power you are. Either wield power as a moral actor or fuck off.
The lines. I think some of them want us to accomplish a complete change in the government of Iran, to topple the clerics and to replace those clerics with somebody who's, much friendlier. But look, what is our experience with doing that? It's
not
awful.
good.
It's not good, right? And so, if the Iranian people want to rise up,
I need to get some water. I'll be right back.
And change their government, that's up to them. But we're not going to send 150,000 ground troops in order to accomplish a change in a regime unless the people on the ground themselves want to accomplish that outcome. Now, we're not going to send the troops in regardless, but to propose sending in the troops, you're basically saying that the U.S. military should do the job for the Iranian people. We're not in that business anymore. We're just not. And then I think a second outcome that people are whether they're aware of it or not, is what I call the Libya outcome. So if you look at the end result of our Libya policy after Gaddafi was killed by the Obama administration, by the way, again, a very stupid decision, what happened? Libya basically turned into a failed state. You had a refugee crisis. You had people pouring into Europe, pouring into other parts of Asia, other parts of Africa. You had a lot of violence, a lot of terrorism come from that. I do think that there are people who would like that to be the outcome in Iran. But then I say, again, what is in our interest? How is it in the United States' interest to have 94 million desperate people flooding into Europe, flooding into the United States, to have, sort of the terrorist infrastructure that can get established when you fan terrorists all over the world? We've run this experiment before. And so our policy right now, what we're trying to accomplish is get the straits open, ensure the free flow of oil and gas, obviously want to keep the Iranians from having a nuclear weapons program, and using the tools of diplomacy and military power to accomplish that.
And Libya failing and the collapse of Libya is a lot of what's fueled the migrant crisis in Europe as well, correct?
Exactly. That in Syria, another failed state that was created by bad Middle Eastern policy. So there is precedent for the United States doing this. Every time that it has happened, it's caused a refugee crisis, it's caused a spike in terrorism, and it's also, not incidentally, to the moral considerations, it's led to a lot of innocent civilian deaths.
Now, what was the talk about? I think the number was like $300 billion in concessions to Iran to rebuild.
Yeah, so this is another just bullshit argument that the critics made against the deal. And again, just to back up a little bit, this is my own little hobby horse, but look, the coalition that Donald Trump piloted to the 2024 election campaign, it was a landslide. We won 7 states. It was historic. Nobody, certainly no Republican, had actually led a coalition like that, at least since the days of Ronald Reagan. So like literally before I was alive. Okay. So Donald Trump wins this great coalition. And look, it's got hawks, and it's got people who hate foreign wars. Okay. It's got people like you and people like Tucker. It's also got people like Mark Levin and others. Okay. I just accept that as a reality. That's part of the coalition. I don't say that anybody is welcome or unwelcome. I say that if you're willing to sort of help us, you're going to get a lot what you want. You don't get everything that you want. What has really annoyed me about the hawkish side of this thing is they attack any effort to negotiate.
Arming the Houthis would be a twist. Wouldn't that be crazy if we're like, uno reverso, Houthis, here's some man pads. And they're like, what the fuck? Kazra says, I hate this piece of shit and his daddy. His daddy was drooling when people were out on the streets. They use all this shit to justify their actions. True. It's almost like we did way too little, way too late. Maybe the time to act was when there were tens of thousands of Iranians, hundreds of thousands of Iranians in the streets, and thousands of them or tens of thousands of them got wiped out by government forces. Maybe that was the time to act. We were just like, I don't know, 3 months late while people were getting machine gunned. That kind of fucking sucks.
They attack the president. They attack me personally. Donald Trump is betraying me. Well, wait a second. If you want to have like a hawkish policy towards Iran, the idea that Donald Trump has betrayed you because he's also trying to negotiate to get a good outcome for the American people is crazy. And so you've seen a lot of these people completely flip on him, and that brings me to the $300 billion point. What we did with the MOU is we actually worked not just with the Iranians, but with the Gulf Arab states.
What is the term MOU? What does it stand for?
Memorandum of Understanding. It's the basic structure that we set up for the negotiation. So what happened here is, okay, so people sort of think of the Middle East as like Iran versus Israel. I think a lot of people do. There's also a massive number of Gulf states that are really important, good allies to the United States. You know, they and Israel don't always see eye to eye, but we're obviously very close to both Israel and to the Gulf states. And the Gulf states actually came to us and said, you know what? If the Iranians are really willing to change their behavior, we'd like to invest in rebuilding their country. Now, whether they change their behavior is something that's going to be determined over the long term, right? We want to see real changes. We want to see them to stop funding terrorist organizations. And also, of course, none of that money comes from the United States. But if Iran's biggest enemies in the region are saying, we'd like to invest if they've changed their behavior, would the United States let us? Would we release the sanctions that would make it possible for the UAE and Saudi Arabia and other countries to invest in Iran? Our attitude was, well, isn't that a victory for us? If Iran's biggest enemies see that they have changed themselves so much that they're willing to invest in the Iranian economy, isn't that like the definition of a win-win? And then you had all these people saying, no, you can't give them $300 billion. It's like, we're not talking about giving them $300 billion. We're talking about letting other countries invest in Iran if Iran has changed the way that it treats the Gulf Arab countries. It's fundamentally between them, meaning the Iranians, and the Gulf Arab countries. So there's this line in the MOU that basically says that if Iran meets all of its obligations, then we will permit other countries to invest in Iran. That's it. And that, like, again, the hawks attacked us and misrepresented this and lied about it and said the Trump administration is going to give the Iranians $300 billion. And it's totally fake. It's completely made up. And it was done purely in order to politically tank the negotiation.
Okay. But the hypocrisy argument from the liberals, the hypocrisy argument from the hawks, is that Trump is the one who tanked the JCPOA. And effectively, you're trying to renegotiate the JCPOA, which was an agreement that Obama had that stated, we will allow in inspectors to make sure you don't have a complex weapons development program. And as a result, we'll give you diplomatic relief. And that was the status quo in the middle tens. But Trump shredded that because he thought he could, quote unquote, get a better deal because he's a stupid fucking asshole. And now, not only did we blow up their fucking command and control, not only did we piss off the hardliners, not only did we kill a shitload of their government, but now we're in this weird half measure where we're negotiating a worse JCPOA. And I understand Khazra, a community member, is quite passionate about the ultimate end of the current Iranian regime. But from an American perspective, it's like, well, we kind of have to shit or get off the pot. We either need the Iranian regime to normalize diplomatically, trade with the world, not encourage terrorism, not fuck with the energy supply of the Gulf states, or we need them to be totally deposed and then for the new state to do that. But it's got to be one way or the other. And we're kind of in the worst of both worlds right now, where simultaneously, not only is like Gulf state energy production interrupted, not only is Iran continuing to support terrorist organizations, not only are they militantly hostile to us, but even once we negotiate, we're arguably going to have a worse deal than the JCPOA. And the region is going to be more destabilized than when Trump first started this arc of Iranian antagonism a decade ago. So it's kind of like shit or get off the pot, but since we're not going to shit, we should get off the pot. Good Lord.
So there's been this interesting dynamic here where, as we've been trying to negotiate, there have been these extraordinarily well-funded efforts to tank the negotiation, to prevent us from reaching a deal, to change American public opinion, which, by the way, if you look at the public opinion, people love the idea of actually getting to a final resolution on this thing. Americans they're not game for long-term, open-ended regime change wars in the Middle East. They're okay with us using the military to accomplish discrete objectives. They're not okay with open-ended obligations.
What do you think the motivation of the Hawks is? Do you think this is? Are they influenced by defense contractors? Are they what's the reason why they're so keen on continuing to bomb?
I think with any big group of people, you have a diversity of opinions. So sure, I'm sure that. You have people who are influenced by defense contractors. There's a lot of talk about how much is the Israeli government influencing American politics, and there are certainly certain people within the Israeli government who hate the deal, and we see exact evidence. There was a Times story that came out yesterday that basically there are certain influencers in America who are being paid in order to attack the deal. I think some of it's just pure political ideology, right? It's foreign policy perspectives that are much different from mine. They think that America should that we can basically, you can wave a magic wand with the military and accomplish whatever you want. And, it's not that simple. You actually have to have a very clear objective. Military power can accomplish a clear objective, but you've got to have that clear objective. You can't just say, we're going to bomb until something good happens. That never works. The United States has tried that before. So I think it's a combination of things. But I definitely think you have seen this very discreet, extremely well-funded campaign to try to derail the negotiation and try to derail the deal. And, there's this Time article that came out yesterday. A friend sent it to me. It's like worth reading, because it lists a bunch of people who have quite literally been paid by a former Trump campaign person who was himself paid by certain elements within the Israeli government. And those people are attacking me viciously for quite.
Okay, I'm a little tired of his complaints of, oh, well, we have Hawks as a part of the coalition. They're attacking me and criticizing me. My boss is an idiot, but I can't say that, so I'm just going to pretend that, yes, it's a shit situation, but we're making the best out of it. I'm going to go to Epstein and see if we can find some Epstein files, 13504. Here we go. So, let me just summarize that real quick, I suppose. So, Iran's been a thorn in our side since 79. We've obviously done a lot of fucked up shit in order to try to keep them contained and in order to try to maintain our energy reliance and alliances with the Gulf states. That's included this most recent conflict. This most recent conflict was poorly envisioned, overly optimistic, very fucking silly, and it's gotten thousands of people killed. So, while I understand there are people who want a regime change in Iran, as do I, by the way, I think that, actually, weirdly enough, I agree with JD Vance here. The military can execute and accomplish specific limited goals. Kill this target, destroy this infrastructure, seize this territory, guard this territory, etc., etc. What it's bad at, and this is kind of in reference to the Vietnam War, is let's just unleash bombs until hopefully something good happens. Arguably, that's what we did in Vietnam because we fought a defensive action where we just bombed Laos, Cambodia, and parts of North Vietnam, praying that eventually South Vietnam would be capable of standing on its own, and it wasn't. And as a result, it got slaughtered and conquered. Same thing with Afghanistan. We just dropped bombs, hoping that eventually people would stop being so crazy social conservative over there, and they would adopt secular democracy. And that obviously was not a reasonable or pragmatic ask in Afghanistan. So, Iraq, weirdly enough, I think was more successful than those other two. But yes. Okay. Shit or get off the pot is the main thrust of what I'm saying. Anyways, since he's just complaining, oh, hawks have their knives out and they're backstabbing me for being insufficiently hawkish about Iran. Okay. Good luck with that. Let's go on to the pedophile sweeping.
Do you understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files were supposed to be released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
I see. So you're basically saying like the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail like the administration into doing the Iran thing.
Or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, like, say this with all...
Well, that's true, Joe. How sick would it be? How sick would it be if JD Vance was like, well, yeah. He'd be like, yeah, Donald Trump had sex with a few teenagers in 80s, 90s, and thousands. And there's enough circumstantial evidence in there in order to credibly accuse him. There might not be enough in order to criminally incarcerate him, but there's enough to credibly accuse him, which will, damage his legacy. And considering Jeffrey Epstein was an operative for, alongside the Israeli Mossad during the Iran-Contra affair in the 1980s and 1990s, and he was clicked up with powerful Zionists in the Western world who themselves would be accused of horrific sex crimes. Actually, Iran was kind of a little bit of a distraction. Iran was a little bit of a distraction from the domestic pressure of, releasing the Epstein files. We decided that blowing up a Middle Eastern and North African country that was against America was actually an excellent distraction to get people to stop talking about the ephebophilic sex trafficking that happened in the 80s, 90s, and thousands. Ah, God. I wish we lived in that world.
All candor, like, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. Like, we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said, the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were
100%,
standing in
right.
front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to
what was the
defend.
purpose of that performative display of the Epstein files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think is happening, look, I know Pam, I like Pam. I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me. Like, you and I have talked about this a lot. I'm like one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole. We could go down most of them today. Look, the original sin of the Epstein investigation, and obviously I'm biased here, but it was not what Donald Trump and the administration did in 2025. It was, you have to go back to 2007, 2008. The original Alex Acosta investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, where he basically dropped the federal charges. I think Epstein ended up getting prosecuted on some sort of local thing. But the original warrant, you go to the original warrant back in 2008, what was he looking for? What was he allowed to look for? What were they collecting? It was not looking at a broader conspiracy. So that happens, okay? Epstein gets...
But conspiracy, you butt fucking son of a bitch. You know, really, the original sin was in 2007 and 2008 when Donald Trump's transportation secretary. What was Alex Acosta in the Trump administration? What was his role? Alex Acosta's role in the Trump admin. Secretary of Labor. It was when, yeah, the original sin was when the Secretary of Labor, who knows what he was allowed to look at, who knows what he wasn't allowed to look at. You know, that was the original, yeah, no shit, that was the original sin. That's what we want to know about. So could you please expand what he was sweeping for, what he was allowed to look at, what he wasn't allowed to look at? Could you please, please elucidate us on those details? That would be fantastic. Diminished Darknut with the $20 has a dog clutching a trophy. Thank you for the 20. Sorry for the late all. I got in a terrible wreck Tuesday. I'm sorry to hear that, bud. I'm sorry to hear that. Was it while you were driving professionally, or was it driving personally, and were you at fault? Because obviously if you're driving professionally and then you get found at fault, that's going to be a fucking nightmare. If somebody hit you and you're not going to be found at fault, then, you know, that'll be okay. What's going on, big guy? Tell me.
Gets pinched. I think he goes to prison, or maybe this is when he was on house arrest. Mm-hmm. But like anything that existed from the 80s and 90s. Yeah,
that wasn't on purpose, conservative, personal. Okay, good. I'm sorry. Truly, I am. I'm sorry that you were involved in a horrific personal accident. I hope you're doing okay. But I am happy. Sorry, let me explain this real quick so it doesn't sound like I'm happy that Diminished Darknut got into a car accident. When it comes to commercial drivers, this is my experience anyways. When it comes to commercial drivers, the way that they are judged is on a very extreme scale. So when they're driving professionally, they have to be above reproach. Obviously, there's like, you know, long haul commercial drivers have a reputation for doing drugs and driving for 60 hours straight and all that kind of bullshit. But the truth is, with your CDL, if you fuck up your CDL, you're fucked, right? Like if you drive for 60 hours on methamphetamine and cause an accident, you are going to fuck up your license and therefore fuck up your income. So I'm not happy that Diminished Darknut got into an accident. I'm actually, you know, sad and would like to hear more details. But between getting into an accident in personal or professional settings, getting into an accident in a personal setting is better because it's not going to affect your licensing as bad for a CDL, if at all, depending on jurisdiction and severity and all that kind of stuff. And then also being at fault is another determinant. So for instance, like I'm pretty sure CDL drivers, even if they have a CDL, they cannot get like routine tickets, even in their personal vehicles. They can't be blowing stop signs, running red lights, fucking speeding. Even in their personal vehicles, if they accrue a certain amount of tickets, it can affect their licensing. And then that in turn affects their job. So that's why if it sounded like I was insufficiently caring of Diminished Darknut's health and well-being, it's just because I know professional drivers, it gets scary. It gets scary when people fuck with your income. So Diminished said, told my job, they said not to worry. EMT were surprised I was alive. I'm unharmed. I could be worse. I'm lucky. Okay. Well, I am sorry that you were in a terrifying accident, but I am happy to hear that you're relatively unscathed. Yeah. So, good. I'm sorry. Obviously, you're probably going to be subconsciously processing that for a while. I wish you the best. Thank you for the donation. I am happy it was in a personal accident capacity, and I'm happy that you're okay physically. But obviously, take your time and process that mentally as well. Anyways, moving.
90s up to 2006, 2007, anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared, right? So, like when people say, "Has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people or that Epstein never engaged in broader sex trafficking?" No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence.
Dispositive. In law, dispositive refers to a fact issuer ruling that definitely settles a matter or determines the outcome of the case. It makes further deliberation on that specific point unnecessary and allows a court to resolve a claim. Right. But if the scope of the investigation was limited on purpose, then that's the kind of details that I would want to know. So, for instance, if Alex Acosta was told by anyone, hey, Jeffrey Epstein is clicked up with the intel community, as a result, give him a limited prosecution insofar as you can, and basically don't look into these allegations of other people, that's the kind of details that I would want to know, and those are the kind of details that I would want investigated after the fact. So, where's your, what's that guy's name? The Jack guy? Jack Murphy? Federal prosecutor Jack Smith? Jack Smith. Where's our version of Jack Smith saying, yeah, it turns out Alex Acosta is a huge piece of shit. He helped fucking Jeffrey Epstein sweep up his crimes in 2007, 2008 under direction from this person in the Bush administration. And then going forward, it basically wasn't talked about, but it was a open and dirty secret within the DOJ that Jeffrey Epstein was a clicked up intel officer or intel informant who worked with the CIA, so he got a sweetheart deal for ephebophilic sex trafficking. And after reviewing all of his sex trafficking shit, here's half a dozen or a dozen unindicted co-conspirators who we believed were involved in the criminal sex trafficking. And in the interest of transparency, we are releasing all of this information to the public. Wouldn't that be fucking nice? Instead of the sweep job that we're actually getting out of your mouth right now. This is arguably even worse. Because what's happening is he's saying, oh yeah, it's there. We're just not going to give it to you because it's not proof positive for a criminal prosecution. How about just in the interest of the public? How about just in the interest of the public, the DOJ failed to investigate the largest ephebophilic sex trafficking ring in American political history because the dude was clicked up to powerful people? How about we just have that as a blanket statement confirmed by the DOJ? Even that would be a step in the right direction. Yeah, Jack Murphy is the dissident right-wing cuckold. I remember now. Anyways.
And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007. Now, like again, in our defense, yes, was there some bitching and moaning, and was there some back and forth? Yes, but we eventually collected 6 million documents as part of the effort. The president, people say the president was forced into releasing the documents. Like, again, the idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke. He absolutely could have killed it.
They had a fucking veto-proof majority. How many? Fuck you, J.D. Vance, you lying piece of shit. What was it? How many? Sorry, I got an email as well that's kind of important, but what was it? I was Googling one lie and then we got to another. So hold on. How many people in the Senate voted for the Epstein files? The U.S. Senate passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act with a formal roll call vote, and it was approved unanimously. Unanimous. What is a veto-proof majority? 2/3. Not only that, both Marjorie Taylor Greene and, what wasn't it, Lauren Boebert? Didn't they both report that Donald Trump tried to kill it in the fucking... Dude, this is like... I was kind of chilling and like sitting back here and kind of just like dealing with the content, because the truth is that JD Vance is an okay articulator. How is this not a bald-faced fucking lie? Can anybody in chat give me the fucking steel man? Literally, there's 100 fucking senators in the Senate. It's 2 per state, 50 states. And it passed with I know it's a roll call vote, so they didn't have to say aye or nay, but it passed with 100. Trump told everyone to vote for it so no one would have to fall on any swords. He knew that it was sufficiently redacted to mostly protect him. That still makes JD Vance a lying piece of shit, though, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. That still makes him a massively a huge piece of shit. All right.
What did he do? He actually said, nope, we're going to release these files. He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, do I think there is I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence that the President of the United States engaged in wrongdoing with minors, ever. So, when the president says the hoax, that's what he's talking about, is this Democratic idea that he somehow was a pedophile. It's absurd. There's no evidence for it. Now, the Epstein,
No. There is evidence for it. There isn't proof of it. Okay? This is one of the things that's fucking pissing me off, even about some people in Twitch and YouTube politics. Evidence can be weak evidence. So, for instance, let's say I'm a cop and I'm walking up to a car and I smell a whiff of marijuana. Well, I'm one person. I have a bias or motivation to get into the car, and I search the car and I find no marijuana. Well, that isn't dispositive that there was no evidence. Maybe they had a fucking vape that I didn't find. Maybe they took a fucking weed vape and they shoved it down their crotch and I didn't find it when I patted the person down. Right? So that actually has no bearing on the truth of the matter. And there was evidence. It was just weak evidence that didn't result in a conviction. There is 100% quote unquote weak evidence against Donald Trump, which is the testimony of women that he was allegedly sexually assaulted by. But do you know what you do when you have weak evidence? You continue to investigate. You use the weak evidence in order to, you go to a state attorney, you ask for a warrant in order to use the weaker evidence in order to find stronger evidence. That's one of the things, by the way, that pissed me off about North. He was like, oh, you don't have proof. You don't have evidence that this happened. No, I have evidence. I have weaker evidence. But through the course of a law enforcement investigation, use weaker evidence in order to leverage, in order to find stronger evidence. That's literally how police officers don't start out psychic, right? You don't start out knowing everything that fucking happened. You fucking pull on the thread of what's available until you find what you're looking for, or weirdly enough, you don't find what you're looking for. And so as a result, let's take a look at this. So they have 6 million or 7 million documents that JD Vance has said they found as a part of the Epstein case. Well, the Department of Justice has released nearly 3.5 million pages of investigative documents and 180,000 images and 2,000 videos. How about the other 3 or 2.5 million fucking documents that the DOJ is saying they're not going to fucking release? How about that shit? How about out of the 3.5 million pages, they severely redacted the fucking sworn written testimony? The only thing that was supposed to be redacted out of the Epstein files were the names of the victims. So it should read, sentence, 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 black bar, sentence, 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 sentence. And then what they actually released, particularly when it came to grand jury testimony, is pages covered in black. That's not in compliance with the law. So out of the 3.5 million that they released, there's thousands of documents that are not in compliance with the law. And then they still haven't released an additional 2.5 million fucking documents. This, please tell me. Okay, hold on. I literally have to do a poll because I need, when somebody says something confidently, I have this thing because I walk around saying what I earnestly believe. I presume that most people walk around saying what they earnestly believe. I need to know how much you think JD Vance is lying right now. So JD Vance is ... bold-faced. I don't know if it's bald-faced or bold-faced, but bold-faced lying. Half-truthing. Or he's telling the truth. Because I swear to God, I get fucking gaslit when people are this fucking confident when they're saying shit. I'm like, is this person delusional? That's another option. I'll put delusional. Is he delusional? Is he telling the truth? Is he telling half-truths to sweep for himself? Or is he bold-faced lying? And I need to see what you guys think about that, because that to me feels like a fucking bold-faced, bald-faced lie. And by the way, a bold-faced or bald-faced lie in this context is fucking, you're fucking disbarred from my vote for president. Disbarred from my fucking vote for president. Anyways. Like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats if you got them, memberships if you got them. Let me go ahead and thank the people who have donated. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate not only your viewership, but also your donations. I understand that with the JD Vance content, it got a little bit slower, but he brought some things to piss me off with. Diminished Darknut with the 20. Old School with the 5. Horse God with the 5. Jen Winkler with the 5 gifted. Fellrunner with the 2. Old School with the 5. Jeb Kush with the 5. Old School with the 2. Old School with the 2. Officer Nasty with the renewal. And Vazraka with the gifted. Thank you, kings and queens, not only for your viewership, but also thank you for your financial support. Moving on. Son of a bitch.
Law gets signed. We find 6 million documents. We find about 3 million of them are actually responsive, has something to do with the Epstein estate. We release all of them, with the exception of a few things that are like, the courts have said that we have to redact certain things or we can't release certain files. But we did release all these files. Did it take longer than it should have taken? Yes. But we did release these files. And again,
2.5 million of them are still unreleased, and a substantive amount of the files that you released have giant fucking redactions not in compliance with the law. This is a lie. This is a lie. Excuse me. Did he not? Did he sweep? Did he sweep for putting the 10 Commandments in schools earlier? Does he claim to be a devout Christian who believes that he is going to be answerable to the creator of the universe when he dies? I hate lying motherfuckers so goddamn much. I hate fucking lying fucking sacks of shit so much. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. So is he... That has been translated in a modern context to mean thou shalt not lie, right? So is he kind of doing some religious hula hoops where, because he's not specifically in some kind of trial about his neighbor, therefore he's allowed to bear false witness? This motherfucker. This lying motherfucker. You want to put fucking 10 Commandments in school, meanwhile you're violating one of them in front of tens of millions of people. Fuck you.
The problem here is not like anything that's in the files or not in the files. The problem is, if you go back to the original investigation, it was designed in a way that was way too narrow. If there was a broader conspiracy, and you know my view is that there probably was, the evidence that existed in 2007, that was the opportunity to get
So
it.
when you say there probably was a broader
What's the statute of limitations on sex trafficking? Sex trafficking statute of limitations varies on whether or not it's a criminal or civil case, the age of the victim, and whether the case is filed under federal or state law. Many jurisdictions have eliminated time limits entirely for minors. There is no federal statute of limitations for sex trafficking of a minor. These cases can be prosecuted at any time. This lying motherfucker. They could literally reopen the investigation tomorrow. They could get their own bulldog state prosecutor, similar to fucking Jack Smith, and they could reopen the investigation tomorrow. There is no statute of limitations on fucking criminal sex trafficking allegations. Fuck this guy. Fuck him, fuck him, fuck him in his stupid ass. What a vile fucking thing to do. What a vile thing to go on one of the largest platforms on the fucking planet and sweep for sex trafficking when you are a part of the administration that wields sufficient power that you could investigate any sex trafficking allegations at any point. And you say, oh, I think it was a wider sex trafficking conspiracy, but we narrowed the investigation too much in 2008. You have the capacity to reopen and re-expand the investigation, you fucking lying sack of shit. What a unbelievable piece of shit. I hope there's a God just so he can judge fucking JD Vance on this alone. I pray there's a God just for this.
broader conspiracy? What exactly are you saying?
I think there are a few different options. I mean, look, man, I like you and I could literally do 2 episodes about this. I've gone on down to every rabbit hole. There's this funny New York Times story that's somewhat true, somewhat false, but where Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, says, well, we know JD's a conspiracy theorist on this. Like I am, actually. I've gone down every rabbit hole here. Look, so there's the theory that whether it was American intel or foreign intel, that Epstein was sort of using sort of the sex ring to blackmail rich and powerful people. There's that piece of it. You know, I think there's a separate conspiracy that hasn't gotten covered as much, which is that Epstein actually,
Okay, Crusader Danny, I'm not misrepresenting shit. Who is the founder of Victoria's Secret? No, that's not it. Victoria's Secret CEO who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Les Wexner. Is Les Wexner still alive? Les Wexner is still alive. Who are the alleged co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein? Ghislaine Maxwell, Les Wexner, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Leslie Groff. Dude, Les Wexner is still alive. Ghislaine Maxwell, her case was prosecuted under a very narrow scope. Is Leslie Groff still alive? Sarah Kellen, Nadia Marchinkova, unindicted co-conspirators in a 2007 plea deal. These people can be reopened and reinvestigated at any point. As we've already established, there is no statute of limitations for fucking sex trafficking. So these people and all of their associates could be subpoenaed. You understand that you can be, like, at any point, based off of the allegation of criminal involvement, you can be brought in for questioning by law enforcement at any point. Literally, some dickhead on the west side of Orlando who hates me could tell Orlando Police Department that I am the center of a massive drug ring, and then Orlando Police Department has the right to call me in for voluntary questioning, and then if they establish evidence that I actually am criminally involved, they can secure a warrant. I have the right to an attorney. I can show up and I can say, based off of my attorney's advice, I will not be answering questions. But you can still be called in at any point. Les Wexner, Ghislaine Maxwell, Leslie Groff, Sarah Kellen, Nadia Marchinkova, or whatever the fuck, Bill Gates, Peter Thiel. All of these people can be called in right now. And is JD Vance against that? Yes! Because he has the capacity to do it right now, and he's acting like he doesn't. He has the capacity to go on TV and say, hey, the Trump administration has blocked documents not in compliance with the Jeffrey Epstein Act. The Trump administration has blocked fucking 2.5 million files that the Department of Justice is currently in possession of. They are refusing to reopen the investigations and question anybody involved with Jeffrey Epstein because of the narrow scope of the 2008 investigation. They would rather let sleeping dogs lie, despite the fact that they have the capacity to do so. And he's acting like his hands are tied. His hands are not tied. Not only are his hands not tied, as established by another community member, he has the capacity to say all of this and not be fired by Donald Trump. The only person that could remove him from office is Congress. So yes, he is complicit currently, right now, on the Joe Rogan podcast released 24 hours ago. He is currently complicit with the cover-up of an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring. Yes. That is what I am stating.
Original Epstein guy was Les Wexner, okay, who Columbus, Ohio, was the wealthiest person in Ohio, maybe still is the wealthiest person in the state of Ohio. The thing that everybody in Columbus, I lived there for a time, knew about.
What would that do to his political career? It would tank him with the fucking MAGA base. Because by implication, he is saying that Donald Trump has morally failed the American people. And he is MAGA is still, while they're only 1/6 of the total American population and 1/2 of the Republican Party, they are a critical voting bloc in the Republican Party. Why do you think people, even though Donald Trump is on the verge of becoming a lame duck, and on the verge of becoming one of the least popular presidents in American history, why do you think Republicans are still not breaking rank and openly criticizing Donald Trump? There's a few who think that they can politically survive criticizing Donald Trump. There's like a handful. But the vast majority of Republicans are not breaking rank because they know they're still reliant on Donald Trump for re-election. They know they're still reliant on the MAGA base and the Trump cult. I would say probably a quarter of the Republican Party are actual Trump cultists. They believe that he is a messianic figure sent here to save us from the communists and the fucking gays. Right? So why would he do that now instead of 2027 when primaries are happening? Hey, that's a great fight. You know what, Crusader Danny? That is an insightful statement. Because it is politically expedient for him to sweep for Donald Trump. But I hope you hear me when I say this. Craving political power so much that you are willing to sweep for an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring is bad. I know I have this like, I have these like very brave political and moral takes in Twitch and YouTube politics. I'm an incredibly brave person. And I have paid prices for these fucking takes. But I'm going to go ahead and say a couple of things that I think are true. Masturbating to the idea of having sex with people under the age of 18 is degenerate, fucked up, cringe, and gay. And if you like it, fuck you. That's one of my brave takes. Here's another brave take. Being complicit in the cover-up of an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring while pretending that you can do nothing about it while having the power to do something about it is bad. Yep. Yeah, brave. Stunning. You could call me stunning. You could call me brave. You could even give me a super chat to reward my moral clarity. Stunning and brave.
The Wexner-Epstein relationship is that Epstein was his tax guy. That Epstein was like the genius at identifying weird tax strategies that would allow you to not have to pay taxes, but if you were being a little skeptical, would also say that it would allow Epstein to either blackmail people or to have a separate nexus of influence and control on rich and powerful people. And so I think there's an underreported, underexplored story of was Epstein like doing a lot of tax stuff that was not on the up and up, and is that one way in which he gained blackmail? It's not opposite of the sexual blackmail story, but in some ways it's you know, you could imagine both things being true. I also just think there's an element of he was a scumbag. He was a very sick person. He built relationships with a lot of other rich and powerful people who just didn't have any real moral.
No, and fuck you, Fashion 40. Remember when you were all on board for JD Vance and Chad had to argue? No. And fuck you for categorizing it that way. What I said was JD Vance would have to have a road to Damascus. I swear to God, some of you guys just don't fucking listen. Would have to have a road to Damascus style moment. Do you know what the road to Damascus is? It's where Saul, formerly known as Paul, Paul formerly known as Saul, right? I think. 100 years after Christ, maybe 30 or 60 years after Christ, I fucking forget. He hunted and killed Christians as a Roman citizen Jew. He thought Christians were heretics prohibited by the empire, and therefore they deserved death. And I think he was actually present at the crucifixion of several Christians. Okay? And what happened was God blinded him while he was on a horse or donkey to Damascus. And he realized, holy shit, not only is Christianity correct, not only is Jesus of Nazareth the Messiah, but I have been complicit in the murder of Christians. And then he became a completely changed person who became the foundation of the Church of Christ. Okay? So what I'm talking about is I'm talking about JD Vance being blinded by spiritual and moral clarity. Oh my God, I am complicit in the cover-up of an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring, and I am currently sweeping for a new forever war in the Middle East and North Africa. What am I doing? This is horrible. I can't believe I have allowed myself to be so corrupted by power that I have alienated myself, not only from the principles and values and politics that I held a decade ago, but from my own Christian faith. I can't believe it, how far I have fallen. And so as a result, I am a changed man. I am going to take risks. I'm going to risk my power, and I'm going to risk my life in order to do what's right. And that is what I said would be necessary for me to consider JD Vance for president of the United States. But you know what we got instead, Fashion 40? Because I hope you're fucking with me at this point, and I hope you've actually heard the things that I've said for the past 3 to 5 minutes. JD Vance is currently doing the opposite. He is currently doing the fucking opposite. He is sweeping for the Trump administration in reference to the Iran war. He is sweeping for them in reference to the Epstein cover-up. He is sweeping for them in reference to all the vile shit they have ever fucking done. This is the opposite of a road to Damascus moment. This is the fucking opposite. So fuck him. And I love you, Fashion 40, but fuck you a little bit for you just saying, oh yeah, you love JD Vance. You wanted to fit his dick and balls into your... That's not what I said. It's not even close to what I said. And the fact that Pisco and other liberals misrepresented it that way is infuriating. Anyways, now that we have that cleared up, like the stream, share it with your friends, engage with chat, super chats. If you've got memberships, you've got them. Parasocial, we love you. Thank you for being here. I hope you're having a good time, even though I'm yelling at you.
Judgment about the fact the guy was obviously a scumbag. And again, to go back to defending Donald Trump, I know people don't want to hear this these days, but like, who was the guy? People say Donald Trump was blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy who narked on Epstein to the Palm Beach police? That's in the Epstein files.
Right.
It was Donald Trump.
He also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago.
And then had him back unofficially immediately afterwards. A detail that we like to omit. Fashion 40 for 5 says, here's a chip, my ears are open. Well, thank you, Fashion 40. I appreciate you. Thank you for inspiring a pissed off rant. Anyways, Jeffrey Epstein was claiming that he was hanging out in Mar-a-Lago as recently as 2018. Steve Bannon, fucking Donald Trump's campaign manager, was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017 and running information back and forward to them. Are we going to talk about that? Joe Rogan? You fucking dipshit?
He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. It's just, again,
well, it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning. And like, obviously, it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth. But we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
But some of the stuff that was redacted, some of the names that were redacted weren't victims.
So, yeah, I've looked into this, and my understanding of this, having looked at a lot of this, but not all of it, is that it is sometimes hard to draw a distinction between victim and co-conspirator. And like, let me highlight this in a very sort of obvious way. Ro Khanna, who's been one of the loudest voices on the Epstein file. Well, he became very loud on the Epstein files the minute Donald Trump became president, didn't seem to care about it during the Biden administration. He actually brought one of the Epstein victims, I think, to the State of the Union last year, or maybe it was the year before last. Well, like, that victim, and I'm not saying she wasn't a victim. I don't know anything about her particular case. She was also listed as a co-conspirator in some of these documents, right? So there's an idea that some of the people who were engaged in the sex trafficking were also, facilitating it as well.
So they were incentivized to get more girls.
Yeah, but yes, that's right. But the idea is that it's hard to sort of, it's sometimes a little bit of a gray area between, some of the people who were alleged victims were also alleged co-conspirators. And so what DOJ tried to do was kind of make that judgment as best they could and release as much as possible.
Here you go, you lying sack of shit. I hate this motherfucker. Ooh, I fucking hate this motherfucker with every single fiber of my... I hate this motherfucker more than I hate Hasan Piker, and I hate Hasan Piker. What Jeffrey Epstein did was he got teenage girls to recruit other teenage girls. So effectively, if he got a 15 or 16-year-old girl from Palm Beach High, paid her $100 an hour in order to give him massages, and then coaxed her into giving him fucking hand jobs or having sex with him, then he said, hey, you want out of this? And or you want me to not tell your parents? You need to go get another teenage prostitute. So talk to other girls at your high school, or I'll expose you. And go ahead and tell them that they can make $100 an hour doing a massage for a nice 50-year-old man. And then he would groom those girls too. So because those girls, who were underage, by the way, and probably some of them were above age, were complicit in the grooming of other girls, he's saying, oh, well, Les Wexner being an unindicted co-conspirator is the same as teenage girls being groomed by a man into recruiting other fucking prostitutes. Fuck you, JD Vance, you lying sack of shit. You vile piece of shit. What a fucking asshole. I don't know how the fuck he looks himself in the mirror every single night. I hope it's a combination of drugs and delusion. What a fucking monster. What a sack of fucking shit. Again, that's not what he said. That's exactly what he said, Crusader Danny. He said, oh, one of the women that, I don't know her specific case. Why don't you know her specific case? Why don't you know her specific case? Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Ro Khanna brought an Epstein victim to the State of the Union. Who was that? Haley Robson. Haley Robson Epstein. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and see what Haley Robson is accused of. Haley Robson is an outspoken survivor and key accuser of Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. Recruited at age 16 in 2002, she spent 2 years in Epstein's orbit, eventually becoming a victim of ongoing abuse and coercion. So yes, she is literally a teenage sexual victim. She has since dedicated herself to advocacy, justice, and accountability. So let's go ahead and see what Haley Robson was accused of. Was Haley Robson a recruiter for Epstein? Yes, Haley Robson, well, who recruited, oh yeah, here we go. Haley Robson was one of the women who recruited underage girls for Jeffrey Epstein, acting under coercion and threats until or after she was first abused by him at age 16. So literally, Crusader Danny, why do I know more than the Vice President of the United States right now? I am a 50 viewer live streamer. I am a 50 viewer live streamer out of favor in Twitch and YouTube politics because I decided to piss on the leg of somebody who I thought was engaged in poor behavior. And I have paid a algorithmic and financial consequence as a result. Why does some dipshit 40-year-old Marine Corps veteran with fucking CTE, I don't actually think I have CTE, but let's just say that I did. Let's just say I had CTE. Why the fuck do I know more about Haley Robson than JD Vance is claiming to know on Joe Rogan's podcast? Why was he not capable of Googling the alleged crimes that Haley Robson was accused of, which, by the way, is recruiting underage girls on Jeffrey Epstein's behalf? Why doesn't he know that? He's talking about it. He's talking about it openly. And if you are not a closed-minded fool, which I'm not trying to accuse you of, obviously we can have good faith disagreements. The obvious answer is he is sweeping. He is trying to compare Les Wexner and the other adults that were complicit in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring as being identical to a underage sexual recruitment victim. He has just conflated those two concepts in order to sweep for the fact that the Trump administration is not only not in compliance with actively passed law that was unanimously passed in the Senate and overwhelmingly passed in the House, he is sweeping for their non-compliance. He is sweeping for them covering up an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring. That is the obvious conclusion to anyone who is not partisanly bought into the Republican Party. Okay? And by the way, I'm okay with the fucking Rob and Rodney and Nameless Henchmen and fucking all these people who come into my chat who are liberals or progressives and they say, why are you trying to still claim the label Republican when these people have beat this label, this name is corrupted beyond redemption? Yes, one of the most powerful people on the planet who has infinitely more sway over the Republican Party than me is on our screens right now sweeping for an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring. The Republican Party deserves to burn. There is not a shred of redemption here. There's not a shred of honesty, integrity, family values, anything that they protecting children, anything that they fucking claimed is corrupted beyond redemption with this act by J.D. Vance. The Republican Party should be destroyed with fire and rebuilt from the fucking ashes. This is vile. Absolutely fucking vile.
But it's clear that he was trying to get in contact with people that he felt were influential. It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties. So there was something he was doing where he was trying to either influence people or compromise people.
Correct.
So it's not, there's some sort of an operation that was going on.
There is a story there, and, you know, I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on and how.
He was also trying to get scientists, and this is one of the reasons supposedly
100%.
why he got that ranch in New Mexico.
So a friend of mine has this element. Okay, sorry, I should step back. Conspiracy theories. One of the ways you discredit a conspiracy theory, I thought about this a lot, is to try to hide it. Another way you discredit a conspiracy theory is by flooding the zone. So one of the things I've tried to do when looking at all this stuff is to try to understand sort of where it fits in and to, you know, try to separate the real from the fake. But one really interesting element of the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga, okay, so he dies in 2019, right? This is at the very end of the first Trump administration. His death coincides very, very closely. This is not my observation. This is a friend, but I don't want to, you know, reveal confidences here. It coincides very closely with the end of what you might call the era of censorship in academia. So back in 2019, 2020, we reached sort of peak academic censorship, where people wouldn't publish a medical study because it might have sort of disparate impact racial undertones, or people were getting fired from academia for not doing land acknowledgments, stuff like that, okay? I'm not saying that stuff has completely gone away, but Epstein, we know, was funding a ton of scientists. By the way, where did his money come from? He was funding a ton of scientists, but like when he died, it's almost like the era of censorship started to break, because he was also plugged into a lot of.
What an unbelievably fucking dumb thing to say. Jeffrey Epstein was responsible for the era of censorship in the late 2010s, early 20s. What a stupid. One man, one billionaire pedophile convinced all of academia to be progressive. What an unbelievably fucking stupid statement. One billionaire pedophile convinced all of academia to be woke. I don't even know what the fuck to do with that. Is he stupid? Is he stupid? Is he what the fuck was that? That was one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever. I don't even know what to do with that. That was what Jeffrey Epstein caused woke. Okay, and not just that. Okay, not only did Jeffrey Epstein cause woke, but we don't know where he got his money. Yes, we do, you dumb bitch. He was a fucking military arms fixer. He fixed the Saudi deal between the United Kingdom and the fucking selling fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. He fixed the Iran-Contra deal. Ever since that, he's been a speculative investor. Yes, we do know where his fucking money came from. It came from fucking working with Adnan Khashoggi selling weapons in the Middle East and North Africa. Why do I know more than the fucking vice president of the United States? And it's because I don't know more than the vice president of the United States. The vice president of the United States is on the internet, on the largest platform on the fucking planet, lying about what he knows. What a fucking asshole. What a fucking piece of shit. I will spend, dude, I've hated being a never Trump Republican. I have hated watching my fucking party degrade itself in this sycophant fucking cult. I will be, and I will hate being, a never Vance Republican. Gross. Absolutely repulsive. Absolutely repulsive.
In academia, but also, you know, he's plugged into the social media companies. Like, this is a dude who knew everybody. He knew everybody. So, look.
So where did his money come from?
Well, from given, part of it is suspect tax advice and setting up tax schemes for a lot of very, very rich people.
Right, but why was
And
he
possibly
motivated to influence academia, and what was the purpose?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I have theories. There's of course the...
Well, most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country. Or both. You know, look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across the board. Like, he had Republican friends, he had Democratic friends. He had much deeper connections to the Israeli left of center than right of center. I don't know what that means.
He was hanging out with Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky.
Exactly. He had, again, in America, he had friends across.
Okay. Are we going to mention that Steve Bannon was Trump's fucking campaign manager during the 2016 election, and we had backdoor communications with the Trump administration 2017 and 2018 via Epstein and the Trump admin? Are we going to mention that Alex Acosta, the person who got the sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein in 2007, 2008, was appointed to, what was it? It was like Department of Labor under Donald Trump. Are we just ignoring that shit? Dude. I'm over here fucking 50 viewer Andy, and I know more about this topic, and I know the vice president of the United States is being willfully ignorant and lying through his fucking teeth. But I know more about this fucking topic than the world's most popular fucking podcaster. God damn it. This is bad. This is really bad.
Across the political spectrum in a way he didn't necessarily have in Israel.
I had one of my guests try to get me to meet him.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
2017.
See, that's crazy to me, because at that point he'd already gone down for at least one like sex abuse thing.
That was my position. I'll show you the emails.
Okay.
They're kind of funny.
Which
I
guest?
actually read them on stage.
You want to say? Okay, fine.
People can find it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the guy's already ruined.
Sure. But
Dude,
it's
I Googled it, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See, but this goes back to my original
But
point,
this is
which
part of what he was doing, right?
Correct.
He wanted to get influential people.
But you go back to the original 2007 warrant on Jeffrey Epstein.
Uh-huh.
All of the really crazy shit happened from the 90s to 2007. That's when he was at the peak of his power. That's when he hadn't yet gone down on a sex abuse scandal. Like, it's your point, right? Even if you have some scumbags who are willing to introduce him to Joe Rogan in 2017, there are a lot of Joe Rogans, or at least some, who are going to say, wait a second, I'm going to Google this guy and find out that he's a predator.
A lot
didn't.
And that was really crazy.
A lot didn't, but some did. And my point is that would limit his influence. But if you go back to like the 1990s, the early 2000s, that is the stuff. I think that is like the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era. And
Because
we
you
had
think it was destroyed.
I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
Right. So they were specifically going after him for underage sex. And they didn't
it was the
look at
one
the
case,
full
but the
picture
case-
of the operation.
They didn't even try to. They didn't even try to.
Well, that was one of the things about the prosecutor was told that he was above their pay grade. I mean, it was one of the things that
No,
he
he
had
said he was like CIA or something.
Yeah.
Right?
He said I was told he was intelligence.
That's right. And yes, I've asked were there documents connecting Jeffrey Epstein directly to our intelligence agencies or anybody else's? And the answer is no. But if that shit existed, it wouldn't exist in 2026.
What is it like being the vice president? Like, how much access do you have to information?
Bro, this is the worst sweep job I've ever heard. Dude, oh, the prosecutor? Why isn't Joe saying, hey, Alex Acosta, the prosecutor that you keep referencing whose scope of investigation was limited, he was a part of the Trump admin, right? Why was he a part of the Trump admin? You know, why did he get his job? That's kind of weird. Don't you think it's kind of weird that Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump were friends for a few decades while Jeffrey Epstein was sexually exploiting teenagers? And then Alex Acosta got appointed to the fucking admin? What's that all about? And then just watch JD Vance sweat fucking bullets as he has to go, oh, well, you know, I don't know why he was selected, but, you know, I know as soon as his complicity was discovered, they dismissed him from the admin. Ha! Weird. Weird. I would call that weird.
Because
So I'll give you another conspiracy. So I have like effectively unlimited access to information.
unlimited.
But I think that one of the things that I've learned about the job is you're doing so much on the day-to-day. Like you're calling senators and trying to get them to pass a piece of legislation. You're meeting with staff about what should go in the housing bill. You're negotiating with the Iranians or the Qataris or the Israelis about something that's going on in the Middle East. And a lot of it, like the UFO thing, like I've said that I'm going to look into the UFO thing. And I've been saying that for a year and a half, and I haven't done it yet because I haven't had the time. And so some of this is like you just have to have the time to actually punch through the walls and to like go to the gatekeepers and say you have to open up that gate because I'm the vice president. And some of it is just hard to actually get to because I don't have the time to sort of focus on that one issue for any particular period of time. So the answer is you have unlimited access to information. The constraint is not people tell me no. The constraint is you're just so busy doing other shit.
The UFO thing, I think, would be something that I would want to pursue.
Yes.
I mean, just for my own personal information, I would want to know what is going on.
Correct.
So the question is, are these special access programs that are above top secret and that this is our own stuff, or is this something that's far more bizarre and something that is interdimensional from another planet, whatever,
Correct.
fill in the blank.
Okay, is it foreign? And if
Yeah.
it's foreign, is it
Right.
6,000 miles away or like 6,000 light years away?
Right,
Yes.
right.
And that is, I will answer that question eventually.
Really?
Yes. I'll get to the bottom of it.
How are you gonna have the time to do that? Like, and what
Well,
would be what would that entail?
Eventually, I'll have like a few weeks where I can just sit down and worry about that problem.
You said something that I thought was very bizarre.
Here's
okay.
the interesting thing, though. I will.
Okay, I'm good. Fuck this guy. Seriously, if I could summarize this entire thing, fuck JD Vance. Okay, I let this roll on a little bit longer than usual. Normally, I try to wrap up a segment by 12:30. But at this point, I can't say anything else besides the fact that JD Vance, in my opinion, bald-faced lied about this stuff. I think he's sweeping on the Epstein files. I think he's told bald-faced lies to us literally in the past hour or two, where he said, oh, yeah, well, part of the reason why we had to redact the files so heavily is because, even the person that Ro Khanna was hanging out with, I don't know her entire story, but, she was potentially looking at criminal charges. Yeah, she was looking at criminal charges because she was a teenage sexual assault victim of Jeffrey Epstein, because just because a 16-year-old can consent to sex verbally doesn't mean that they can consent to sex legally, and therefore a 50-year-old man grooming her, recruiting her for paid sex acts, there's no way for her to consent to that, even if she quote-unquote consented. And so as a result, he also used her to recruit other girls into the system. There is no way that you can fucking say that a 40 or 50-year-old man recruiting 16-year-olds to get other 16-year-olds to fucking participate in sex, that the 16-year-old is as guilty as the 40-year-old. Obviously. So the fact that fucking Joe Rogan didn't have the presence of mind, the balls, or the intelligence to press him on this shit, and the fact that JD Vance, in my opinion, is committing lies of commission and omission. He's saying, oh, well, we can't do anything about it because the scope of the investigation was limited in 2008. And so as a result, we're just kind of fucked with the information we have. That's not true. He can literally open up the investigation tomorrow. There is no statute of limitations for criminal sex trafficking. They can get a state attorney say, hey, we're interested in prosecuting anyone who was participating in sex trafficking as a part of the Epstein cabal. Go hard. Write as many fucking warrants as you want. We don't care who's implicated. We don't care if it's powerful people. We don't care if it's rich people. Go fucking hard. And there would be nothing to fucking stop that state prosecutor. And yet, JD Vance is acting like his hands are tied because Alex Acosta, a state attorney who himself ended up working for the Trump administration in 2016, limited the scope of the investigation in 2007, 2008. There's rot. There's corruption. That you're effectively helping sweep an ephebophilic sex trafficking ring, and you are doing so actively. I hope, I pray, there is a God who judges us at the end of our lives just so JD Vance can get judged for what he just did in front of us. I hope there's a judgmental creator of the fucking universe so JD Vance has to justify what he just did in front of us for the past hour. Fuck him. Fuck him and fuck him 10 times from Tuesday. If he ends up being the Republican nominee for president, I will spend 2028 railing about how he's an ephebophilic sex trafficking, covering up, lying, chameleonic sack of shit. That's how I'll be spending my time in fucking 2028. God damn, what a fucking asshole. Okay. So, I'm going to thank the people who have donated, and then I'm going to force your guys' hand with something goofy in a second. Okay? And I think I might just go be a dad in a second. But let me thank the people who have donated. Fashion 40 with the 5, Diminished Dark Nut with the 20, Old School with the 5, Horse God with the 5, Jen Winkler with the 5, Gifted, Fell Runner with the 2, Old School with the 5, Jeb Kush with the 5, Old School with the 2, Old School with the 2, Officer Nasty with the renewal, and Vazraka with the Gifted. Thank you, kings and queens, not only for your viewership, but also with your financial donation. I am going to tell you guys, something personal, but it's not bad. My 3-year-old was not interested in going to school today. It's daycare. He hangs out with other kids. They play with Hot Wheels. They do Legos. They sing songs. They take naps. They eat. He was very upset that he had to go to daycare today, to the point that he was crying when I dropped him off. And I do feel guilty. I love spending time with my kids. I want them to be happy. I want them to be healthy, all that kind of stuff. So I feel guilty as shit for basically dropping him off and him being upset. So I'm actually not going to be seeing him next weekend because I'm going to be going out of town for my mom's 70th birthday. I'll be going to Texas Friday, Saturday, Sunday of next week. And so I kind of feel like since we dragged out that segment a little bit longer, we do have 90 minutes left in the stream, arguably. But I kind of feel like since stream's a little bit slower, we did engage with content, we did, make some money today, whatever, I'm thinking about rolling out to go get my kid. So I'm actually going to do a poll. What should I do? 90 minutes of Hasan or go get kid? Here we go. And by the way, I am choosing Hasan because I do want to do that segment, but I'm also hoping to subconsciously drive you guys away where you're like, I don't really want to watch Hasan Piker segment. I'm good. And we could just do Hasan or Geopol tomorrow morning. So. All right. Fell Runner says, go get your kid, exclamation point, exclamation point. All right. 83% go get your kid. 88%, 89%, 80%. Okay, I'll just end the poll. All right. I'm not going to be a pussy. I'm not going to put it on you guys. I'm going to go get my kid. So, yeah. Yeah. Happy birthday to Matron Points. We call her Grandma Points, but, or MM Points. But yeah, I'm going to go get my kid. I feel guilty. I feel guilty that he was so upset when I dropped him off today. So I'm going to go pick him up an hour and a half early. But anyways, I parasocially love you guys. I did thank the people who already donated. Thank you so much for your financial support. Thank you so much for your viewership. Go find another favorite streamer, and I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Anyways, bye guys.